Chapter 549. The skeleton seemed to be at a disadvantage after being hit by Li Yunxin's attack. However, the giant didn't follow up with another attack. Instead, he stretched out his hand and grabbed the skull of the skeleton. The next moment, he exerted force with his arm again. The terrifying monster immediately lost its balance and was dragged to the ground by the giant incarnation. It was dragged far away. In the eyes of the demon kings, such a scene couldn't be described with words like shock. It might not be difficult to defeat it. The evil lord had also killed one. However, it was defeated in such a pathetic manner. It was dragged on the ground, as if it couldn't fight back at all. Then, it was thrown far away by the hand of Li Yunxin's incarnation. It only stopped after the incarnation plowed through a large amount of soil and rocks. It was unimaginable. In front of his incarnation, the terrifying monster seemed to be defenseless. Witnessing such a scene, the evil lord couldn't help but ask in a low voice, "When you were in Mount Yunshan, did you see anything else?" At this moment, she could already tell that Li Yunxin had a great trump card in his hands. This trump card was extremely powerful. It could even allow him to play with the battlefield and the two skeletons in the palm of his hand. However, on the other hand, it should be due to some kind of restriction that he couldn't completely control. It seemed that it could only be used at a certain time and place. Once the opportunity was missed, there wouldn't be a second chance. That was why he acted so out of character at this moment. His actions were so exaggerated and pretentious. He couldn't wait to show off all the power of that trump card. He was afraid that he would miss out on anything that could be used. Thinking of this, she was suddenly stunned. Then she said in a low voice, "Impossible." Bai Yunxin heard her words. When they were in the mountain, they took away the treasures of the saints of Xianmen. What's impossible? The evil lord was silent for a while. Then he said softly, "That legend. On Mount Yunshan, there's a treasure that can make one the leader of all the demons in the world. Could it be that Li Yunxin found that thing? However, if he really found it, based on the current situation, it would be a disaster and not a blessing. Because if it was, that thing could only be used here and now." She could see that Li Yunxin was in a hurry to use that thing's supernatural power to create momentum for himself. And there would be other smart people who could see it too. If Li Yunxin was able to see it, and he wasn't like himself, who had to temporarily maintain a neutral attitude because of his injury, and because of his daughter beside him, then Li Yunxin would be in trouble. Who wouldn't covet that kind of thing? He would get himself into trouble. Perhaps none of the demon kings under her command were as smart as him. But among the remaining dragon son, suddenly, a ball of fire appeared in the west. The evil lord heaved a sigh of relief. Her guess had come true. The fire that appeared in the west was not strong. It looked as hazy and light as Li Yunxin's illusion incarnation. At first, it shot up into the sky like a sharp arrow, but it soon spread out and turned into a strange beast that was over 1,000 feet tall. From afar, he looked like a lion. However, his body was much more slender than a lion's. His forelegs were very long, and his waist was also very long. There was a thick mane on his neck. However, the mane was made of flames. Even from 100 miles away, one could still hear the roar when the flames burned. The flaming mane surrounded a face that looked like a lion. However, the cheeks were not covered with fur, but with fine scales. On its forehead, among the flaming mane, there was a pair of red antlers. And, look at its tail. Its tail was not a lion's tail. It was a long and thin snake tail. However, there was also a flaming mane on this snake tail. And at the tip of the tail, there were 3 rays of golden light that looked like thorns. Its whole body was white. It was as dazzling as the sun at noon. This made its flaming mane and red antlers even more dazzling. Just by looking at this fleeting appearance, even those who had never seen it before would know. This was dragons. The huge illusion quickly disappeared. It was as if it was just to attract everyone's attention. And then the voice came. "You dare to confuse right and wrong in front of all the demon kings in the world. Aren't you afraid that you will become the public enemy of all the demon kings in the world and become a stray dog?" The tone of these 3 sentences was extremely unkind, and the voice was also loud, almost the same as the voice of Li Yunxin's incarnation. But the tone was neutral and calm. It seemed to be said by a noble elder, without any emotional fluctuations, just stating the facts and rebuking the wicked. This sudden turn of events caused Bai Yunqin to frown. Jun Shang. It's the Taoist Lord, the Fiend Lord said expressionlessly. After a pause he continued. Li Yunqin said that the Lord Tongtian is plotting a rebellion. It's time for the Taoist Lord to show up. Hearing these two words, Bai Yunqin immediately knew who it was. Among all the Dragon's Son, the title of Taoist Lord was the strangest. The Taoist Lord referred to the fifth son of the Dragon's Son, Shinryu Ryudo, and the demon soul of the Lion Demon King. Because of his mother, Bai Yunqin knew more about the Dragon's Son than others. So she knew that this Taoist Lord Dragon Fifth had always been on good terms with Long Air and the Lord Tongtian. This Dragon Fifth could be said to be really strange. Ichi was the title he gave himself. If people who didn't know what was going on heard it, they would think that he was some high cultivator from Daotong or Kenzo. But in fact, he was a demon among demons, one of the 9 sons of the dragons. Another strange thing was that his fief was adjacent to the fief of the Lord Tongtian. It was just to the west of Tongtian Swamp, including most of the land of Chun, He and Chi Fan. But there was no conflict between them. Instead, they had many contacts, and they were no different from old friends in the human world. The Taoist Lord's Dragon Palace was in the Chi Fan Kingdom. Different from the habit of many demons who like to hide their whereabouts, the Taoist Lord was like a secular person, ostentatiously placing his Dragon Palace next to the Red Abyss. The Red Abyss was a long and deep canyon in the Chi Fan Kingdom. Not to mention the length, it was so deep that one could see the surging lava below. So the area around the Red Abyss was fiery red all year round, and at night it was as bright as day. The name Chi Fan Kingdom came from this. The Taoist Lord Dragon Fifth had set up the Dragon Palace there for many years, saying that he was doing something related to the luck of the demons. He wanted to comprehend a set of martial arts, so that all the demons in the world could learn it. In that way, the power of the demons would flourish, and the right Tao of the world would be in the hands of the demons, not the Xianmen. So he called himself a Taoist Lord. Usually, he would concoct pills and comprehend the Tao in the Red Cloud Palace, next to the Red Abyss. And he looked like an unworldly master. And that long air hatred was the result of the fusion of the dragon essence and the demon soul of the Blood Wolf King of the Red Flame Palace. Because of that demon soul, hatred didn't like water, but liked fire, and was good at playing with fire. So he often went to the Taoist Lord's Red Cloud Palace to stay. And in the long run, he became a rare good friend among the demons. Now, it seemed that after hearing Li Yunqin say that Long De and Long Air Jiao were sent to death by Shinryu's edict, Taoist Lord Dragon Fifth, who was hiding in the wilderness, couldn't help but speak out. After this sound, a golden light rose into the sky from the west. No one knew how this person used a magical power in this chaotic atmosphere. And no one knew what kind of magical power it was. It was clear that this person was only the size of a normal person, and didn't appear to be hundreds of feet tall. However, no matter how far away people were, they could see his appearance, as if he was only 3 or 4 steps away from them. At this time, look at the person in the sky. He was wearing a big red cloak that was in full swing. The robe was also fluttering like flames, as if he was wearing a robe made of fire. But his face was extremely pale. It wasn't the paleness of those lonely ghosts, but the gentleness of white jade. Logically speaking, with this kind of skin color, he should be very beautiful. But this face was embedded with a pair of blood-red eyes, and there was a vertical black line in his eyes. Looking at him like this, it was guaranteed that anyone who saw him for the first time would be scared out of their wits, and would suspect that they had seen a Rakshasa evil spirit. Even the 5 strands of soft and gorgeous jet-black long beard could not change this impression. If that was all, it wouldn't be surprising. Among the demons, there were many who looked more unique than him, and his appearance was actually considered ordinary. But this Taoist Lord Dragon Fifth's body was still emitting smoke. It was hard to say where the smoke was coming from, but it was coming from his sleeves, collar, and even his hair. It was as if his entire body was covered in incense, and his face was hazy, like a clay statue in a temple. In his hand was a horsetail whisk with a black jade handle. Since he appeared in the sky, he waved the horsetail whisk and said, "Li Yunxin, now that you are talking to yourself, I'm sure you won't be able to convince me. Why don't you ask Zither Lady and Lord Tongtian to come out? Let's confront each other at the ancestral court of Daotong and Kinzo, under the cloud mountain of Xianmen. What do you think about this?" As soon as he said this, a voice echoed in the forest where he was hiding. Among the tens of thousands of demon beasts who fled in all directions after the rain of fire, except for those who were timid and had a low cultivation base who accidentally ran out of the restrictive spell, the rest of the demon beasts who were slightly famous were not willing to leave. They all wanted to see what else they could take advantage of. In the end, they were trapped in this battlefield. Now that they had regrouped with Dragon Sun or Great Demon Kings, they seemed to be regrouping. After he said this, a great demon king on the evil lord's side shouted loudly, "We should ask Zither Lady and Lord Tongtian to show up. But let's not talk about other things. Let's first say that you don't want to sacrifice us to those two monsters. Our great demon king is..." This guy didn't speak because he believed in Li Yunxin. It was just the arrogance of the demons. What Taoist lord? He wasn't his master, so he couldn't bear to see him being so arrogant. At this moment, shouting a few words and pulling a group of people to cause trouble was indeed the style of the great demon kings. If ordinary people heard what he said, they would ignore it. Everyone knew the habits of the demons, so they would just treat it as bullsh*t. Unexpectedly, when the Taoist lord heard what he said, he suddenly turned around and stared at them with a pair of blood-red eyes. Although they were hundreds of miles apart, his eyes were like two knives stabbing into the great demon king's body. "Evil lord? Humph. I don't even know if your great demon king is Dragon Sun or Rock Sun. What right does she have to speak?" Chapter 550. As soon as he said that, the demons under the evil lord were in an uproar. Perhaps they were not loyal enough to serve the evil lord to the death. However, at a time like this, the surviving monsters of the world were all gathered in the mountains, and Dragon Fifth was reprimanding their own elders. How could they have any face to speak of? After all, the skeleton was dragged away by Li Yunxin's incarnation. It fell on the ground and didn't get up for a long time. The group of demon kings immediately became agitated and started scolding. They were shocked when they heard the scolding. Before this, the rain of fire had dispersed and the skeleton had appeared. It was as if the demons who survived the rain of fire had left this place. The mountains were indeed quiet. It was as if the tens of thousands of demons who survived the rain of fire had left this place. There were only a few demon kings here. Unexpectedly, when the hundreds of demon kings and demon generals under the evil lord's command started cursing and swearing, the forest to the west of the mountain was immediately filled with loud noises. Judging from the number of voices, there were several hundred of them, and each of their voices was like a great bell, like rolling thunder. It could be seen that their cultivations were extraordinary and profound. Only then did they realize that those guys had been hiding. They saw the demons fighting the monsters and didn't help. Although they didn't know each other, and didn't have the responsibility to help, the demons here didn't care. But the demons on the other side didn't care so much. Anger surged in their hearts. Words like hiding the head and showing the tail, and as timid as a mouse, were considered elegant. Even more curses that no one had ever heard of came out in rapid succession, cursing all the demons that were hiding in the area. At first, it was the demon kings and demon generals under the evil lord and the Tao lord who were scolding. Now that they said that, the other demons couldn't hold it in anymore. So all of a sudden, they thought that there was almost no one in the mountains, but something seemed to have startled a flock of noisy birds. The demon kings, who were originally hiding and watching, could not help but show their prowess. Only then did he realize that the place was actually densely packed with people. There were tens of thousands of demon kings and demon generals who were hiding in the mountains, and this didn't include the ones who didn't say anything. A few days ago, this place was the ancestral court of Xianmen. A few hours ago, it was the terrifying Shura battlefield. But at this moment, it seemed to have become a market where demons gathered. In just a quarter of an hour, the whole world was filled with curses. All the old scores and grudges from the previous battles were dug out. Li Yunxin had experienced the demon's ability to stir up trouble in Hatred's Guanyuan crypt. They could even start a group fight while walking, let alone now. At first, the two sides were shouting insults. But the flames of war soon spread. Nobody knew why or what happened, but flowers bloomed everywhere. After a dozen or so breaths of time, the mountain began to erupt with continuous sounds and flames. Since the celestial sect, the great enemy, had been destroyed, and now that they had lost their backbone, it would be strange if they did not fight with so many demons gathered in one place. The Tao Lord did not seem to have expected that his 3 sentences would cause such a situation. He stood in the sky with a solemn expression and shouted a few times. But at this time, whose voice was not loud. In terms of loudness, some demons were more capable than the dragons. His few shouts were drowned in an even louder noise. The birds and beasts in the forest panicked because of this noise, and some of them were even shaken to death. So when he showed up, he was very majestic and shocking. But now, the fiendish demons were all ferocious and ruthless. They ignored him now. He was standing alone in the sky, shining brightly. It was also extremely embarrassing. Seeing him like this, Bai Yunxin sneered. My lord Lao Ai overestimated himself. I will teach him a lesson for you. This female demon had never been a gentle and virtuous person. She did not make a move before because she was forced by the situation. But in fact, she was very angry. Now that she saw the Tao Lord Dragon 5th, she had nothing to be afraid of. She had returned to the peak, and she was in the mysterious realm of Shi. And the Tao Lord was the same. Although she did not know what other tricks he had hidden, it was not a big deal to fight. However, after she said this, the evil lord frowned slightly. Don't act rashly. Something is not right. The evil lord was one of the strictest among the demons. But at this time, she kept tolerating. She tolerated Li Yunxin. And in the end, she tolerated the Tao Lord whose cultivation was much lower than hers. This made Bai Yunxin widen her eyes, and she said coquettishly, My lord, how dare he say such a thing to me? The evil lord ignored her temper, and only looked at the Tao Lord in the sky with a slight frown. Seems like they are all hiding their strength. Bai Yunxin was taken aback for a moment by his worried tone. At this time, the demons were in a mess. It was also when Li Yunxin's gigantic incarnation illusion fought with the skeleton and knocked it to the ground again. No matter what method he used to create this incarnation, it was terrifyingly strong. Bai Yunxin quickly understood the meaning of the evil lord's words. At least at this moment, Li Yunxin's strength was beyond everyone's expectation, and Dragon 5th's cultivation was worlds apart from the evil lord's. Where did he get the courage to stand up for her? In fact, the evil lord's character was considered cold and indifferent among the demons. If one had to compare, he was about 30% similar to Dragon 9th. On the surface, there was not much difference. But once you got to know him, you would realize that no matter how cold or cruel he looked, there was always something inside. She lived in Tiansha Cliff, and did not come out often. Therefore, although she was at the peak of the mystic realm, she was not famous. Because of this, other than Long Daqin Jun, who was also at the peak, she did not have much contact with the other dragon's son. The reason why Yazi was so friendly to her was partly because of Zither Monarch, and partly because of her terrifying cultivation base. But even so, this 5th brother of hers used to be well-behaved. But now, he suddenly showed such a fearless face. 2,000 years ago, among the 9 sons of the dragons, there were only 2 in the mystic realm. The evil lord stared at the figure of the Tao Lord, and suddenly said such a sentence. This caused Bai Yunxin to be stunned again. Lord? But the evil lord still said softly, Lord Tongtian Hatred and Tao Lord Lao Ai were only in the true realm at that time. Old Five said that he wanted to understand the Tao for the demons to cultivate, but I'm not sure whether he understood it or not. However, it is true that he and Hatred entered the mystic realm later on. The two of them have always been very close, and today, he did such a thing. I am only afraid that he has really obtained something extraordinary, and has taken the step that we have not taken. If it is really that step, the realm of the demons is not enough to measure his strength. Exaner, don't act rashly. the evil lord said in a low voice. I'm afraid that he also has some way to see through our real situation. Maybe even Li Yunqin did not see him. As soon as she finished speaking, the whole space was immediately filled with a long and painful howl. The sound was so loud that it finally suppressed the uproar of the demons. The sound came from the skeleton. In such a short time, the monster's arm was cut off by Li Yunqin's incarnation. It seemed to be at the end of its strength, lying on the ground. It looked like a huge lifeless skeleton. Only the thin snake that occasionally slithered between the bones made people realize that it was not completely dead yet. It could still stand up again. Li Yunqin's illusion placed a foot on its spine, and finally got some free time. She looked up at the sky and shouted, "Friend, you're so proud and arrogant. You even dare to slander my third sister. Who are you?" Previously, the Taoist lord had shouted for the demon kings to be quiet, but they did not pay attention to him. But now, the miserable howl of the skeleton, which brought great fear to everyone just a quarter of an hour ago, caused a moment of silence. Then the Taoist lord laughed coldly. I am the 5 sons of the dragons, a Taoist lord. You don't have to ask when you already know the answer. First, invite the Zither king and the Lord Tongtian out. Ah, it's the 5th brother. Li Yunqin's incarnation smiled. Since we are family, it's easier to talk. The Taoist lord seemed to dislike people interrupting him. So after Li Yunqin said this, he was silent for a moment, looked at him sternly, and said in a low voice, You are not worthy to be my family. A Pengzi and a fake Long Jiu. You have caused a lot of trouble. Humph. Do you think that with your little tricks you can? In the end, he was interrupted again. UF * King Bastard Lion. I am giving you face, don't be so ungrateful. Li Yunqin's incarnation, who was laughing just a moment ago, suddenly pulled a long face and scolded. His scolding stunned not only the Taoist lord, but also the demons. They were not by Yunqin. In fact, when the Taoist lord spoke, she already knew that Li Yunqin was going to explode. He was a person who changed his attitude faster than flipping a book, and he did not feel any pressure. Just by looking at his smiling face, she felt that he was a reasonable person, and that he would definitely suffer a big loss. But after this moment of shock, the whole Scroll Mountain was filled with thunderous cheers. The atmosphere was joyous, as if it was the new year. If someone else saw this, he would definitely feel puzzled. However, those who knew the demons well knew that these demon kings and demon generals were mostly bastards who, once they got angry, would not stand on the side, and would not care about right or wrong. The Taoist lord was noble, and the moment he appeared, he was majestic. Now, he was scolded by Li Yunqin, which was what the unruly demon kings loved the most. If the Zither king, or the Lord Tongtian, evil lord, were to go up, he would probably do the same. He did not stop after scolding. He reached out his hand, and suddenly scooped up something on the ground. He grabbed it with 2 huge fingers, and lifted it up into the air. Then he shouted, confrontation. Okay, let me confront you. Look who this is. The guy that he lifted up was someone that everyone recognized. It was the Lord Tongtian hatred. Therefore the cheers and cheers gradually died down. Even the Taoist lord, who was blushing after being scolded by Li Yunqin, paused. Li Yunqin said that Long Da and Long Air were rebelling. This matter sounded very distant. Not to mention the fact that this statement was unbelievable. It was far from the truth. Even it was hard to say what he could do to them. The world knew that the Lord Shinryu and the Dragon Son did not get along very well. Even if they were really rebelling. So what? The Zither king was at the peak of the mystic realm. And the Hatred Lord was a great demon who had reached the mystic realm. Both of them had terrifying power among the demons, and they were one of the top existences in the world. Such people could cause changes in the world if they were killed or imprisoned. They needed to be extremely careful when dealing with them. Influence and power, the two complemented each other. Even the Lord Shinryu could not help but be restrained. Previously, when Li Yunqin said all this, those who were a little smart, but didn't know the inside story would have a reasonable guess. This Long Jiu just wanted to make a fuss about it and benefit from it. Perhaps the Zither king and the Lord Tongtian were really in some kind of trouble at the moment. So he took this opportunity to stir up trouble. But if he really wanted to do anything to them, no one dared to think about it. Therefore, they thought that it would take a lot of words, probing, and arguments before the topic would really turn to the two rebels that he mentioned. Then, after a battle of influence and power, it would end in a gentle situation that everyone could accept. But it was hard to imagine that at this moment, the Lord Tongtian hatred, the unparalleled great demon, was now tied up by a green iron chain. The two fingers of the giant illusion held the other end of the iron chain, dangling the hatred lord in the air, looking like a puppet with a broken string. And the Lord Tongtian himself was still awake. His eyes were open, and no one knew what he was thinking. He didn't struggle, and he didn't speak. He looked at the situation in the mountain from the sky, and then looked up at the Lord Taoist in the sky. He still didn't speak. Thus, the mountain gradually quietened down. A strange silence spread, and in the end, even the birds' cries could be heard clearly. Even the most stupid demon began to realize one thing. The civil war of the dragon's son seemed to be about to begin. Seeing that the Taoist monarch was frowning in silence, Li Yunxin sneered. If you want to ask, then ask. Ask them if they were the ones who did it, and if they were faking the edict. Do they want to send all the heroes and demons in the mountains to their deaths? After he said this, the evil lord suddenly snorted in a low voice. No one knew whether she was laughing or expressing something else. However, after she said this, the Lord Taoist who wanted Li Yunxin to bring Long Da and Long Air out to confront them still didn't speak. He was strangely silent. Bai Yunxin frowned. Lord Taoist? The Lord Taoist's behavior was very strange, because he should know that the one in Hatred Lord's body now wasn't Hatred Lord himself. It was their real ninth brother, Dragon Son Chiwen. He can't say it. The evil lord looked around and said in a low voice, "What is he saying? To tell all the demons in the world that it isn't Lord Tongtian himself, but Chiwen. Then all the demons will know the secret of the immortal dragon soul. Once they know this secret, they will understand how much Shinryu wants to take back the dragon soul." At that time, these demon kings and demon generals have no loyalty to speak of. Then, between Shinryu and Dragon Son, there will be no suspense. No one will believe that Shinryu will lose. The evil lord sighed. If he says it, he will help Shinryu and Li Yunxin. Chapter 551. After saying this, she paused and suddenly smiled. I want to see how they attack and defend. This scene is interesting. Guess what Li Yunxin will do? What will Lord Taoist do? Her smile made Bai Yunxin stare blankly. Junshang. Because the evil lord didn't look relaxed at first. A demon at the peak of the Xian realm saw his brothers kill each other, but was constrained by the situation, and had to endure it. Anyone would feel indignant about such a thing. On the other hand, the fiend lord's face was as dark as still water, and he looked unhappy. But now, he suddenly smiled and asked Bai Yunxin to tell him their plans. It seemed that he became relaxed. The banshee was puzzled by this turn of events. That was then and this is now. The evil lord saw his daughter's confusion and said in a light tone. Before this, I didn't know what Li Yunxin wanted to do, and whether he really wanted to kill Zither Lady and Lord Tongtian. Looking at the situation now, I know he wants to be friendly to us and find some allies. Since he wants to find allies, it means he doesn't want to completely break with us, the Dragon Son. Now that Lord Taoist has shown up and the demons are watching, he won't dare to kill Zither Lady and Lord Tongtian. He won't kill them. He just wants to vent his anger, and then give the thing he got from Cloud Mountain to Zither Lady or Lord Tongtian. With such a contribution, all the demons in the world can see it. I will say a few words for him, and this matter will be over. However, he has also made his stand clear to the true dragon god, letting the divine lord know that he is indeed his man. As for the powerful thing in his hand, if it is really a treasure that can control all the demons, he gave it to Zither Lady and Lord Tongtian, which is a disaster. If Lord Shinryu knows about this, he won't let it go. And looking at the situation now, although that thing is powerful, it is not as powerful as the legend says. If Zither Lady really took it, she will get herself into big trouble. Sigh. But who would dare to destroy such a precious treasure? It will be troublesome. Bai Yunqin was a clever demoness, but this kind of analysis was not her forte. She did not fully understand the evil lord's words, but she finally understood what her mother was trying to say. With the Tao Lord and the demons around, Li Yunqin did not dare to kill Long Da and Long Air, because if they killed him, they would be in the wrong. Although the demons were heartless, they still had some sense of hierarchy. Even if Long Jiu killed Long Da or Long Air, it was still unreasonable. If any more Tao Lords stirred up trouble, they would immediately become the target of public criticism. The best thing he could do was to humiliate Long Da and Long Air in front of the crowd of demons. Once he vented his anger, he would let the crowd of demons know of his own abilities. In this way, no one would die. Those demons would be happy to see the high and mighty Long Sun being humiliated. Instead, they would praise Li Yunqin for his courage. Then her mother would come forward to mediate. It was because of this that Li Yunqin showed goodwill to the evil lord. Then, Li Yunqin would give those legendary treasures to Zither Master and Lord Tongtian. So the grudge between the two sides was temporarily resolved. Li Yunqin survived and gained a reputation in front of the demons. Zither Master and Lord Tongtian got the treasures that even Lord Shinryu feared. Everyone was happy, because those treasures were too important. It was not something that Li Yunqin could monopolize. And the power of those treasures did not seem to be as great as the legends said. To him it was of little value. She felt that the evil lord's words were very reasonable. However, she felt that something was wrong. This was because the Li Yunqin and the evil lord's deduction seemed to be too normal. That was not the Li Yunqin that Bai Yunqin knew. What if he killed them? Bai Yunqin asked the evil lord. The evil lord smiled softly and shook his head. He is a smart man. He has the guts. But he doesn't have the guts. If he kills either Zither Master or Lord Tongtian, if he doesn't have something that can convince all the demons in the world, he won't be able to live. Now that I think about it, he doesn't have that thing. Bai Yunqin could not refute such a deduction. She was silent for a while. Then what do you think he will do next? The evil lord stared at the huge illusion and the figure of the Lord of Tao in the distance. He said, "The one and second brother's body is Little Nine." It is said that when Little Nine was in the cave, he asked Li Yunqin for help. It seems that they have a deep hatred for each other, but also a good friendship. It is strange. Let me guess. Since Li Yunqin cultivated the painting Tao, she should be able to use some method of the painting Tao to create a new body for Little Nine. Whether he succeeds or not, he will definitely be able to persuade Little Nine with his eloquence. Then next, I guess he will borrow Little Nine's mouth to talk about the bad things that hatred has done, so that all the demons in the world can hear. The Lord of Tao can't refute. He has his own difficulties. As soon as she finished speaking, Li Yunqin opened his mouth again. You don't want to talk. If you don't want to talk, let your second brother talk. Lord Tongtian, let me ask you, did you guys create this monster? When the huge incarnation asked this, it was still stepping on the skeleton. He didn't kill it, as if he wanted to use it as evidence. The Lord of Tao said he wanted to confront it, and this Li Yunqin really did it. The demon kings had never seen such a scene before. For a moment there was silence, and they all looked up to the sky. After 2 breaths, the Lord Tongtian looked around timidly and said, "Yes." The demons were immediately in an uproar, and the sound of cursing filled the sky. The birds and beasts in the mountain panicked and ran around. Li Yunqin pressed his hand down from the sky, and the demons quieted down again. The Lord of Tao frowned when he saw this. Previously, when he shouted in the sky, no one listened to him. Li Yunqin asked sternly again, "To make this monster, you need to refine souls. Did you use the souls of tens of thousands of demon soldiers and demon kings to refine it?" Lord Tongtian sighed again and said, "Yes." Before the demons shouted again, Li Yunqin shouted again, "You and Guqin Jun gathered so many heroes here. Did you plan to bury everyone here, and then refine many souls into demon power for your own use? Then you asked this monster to attack Cloud Mountain and get the treasure." Hearing this, the Lord of Tao couldn't help but say, "Nonsense." However, none of the monsters paid any attention to him. They were all staring at the Lord of Tongtian. "Lord Tongtian, turned to look at the angry Lord of Dao, and then at Li Yunxin. However, Li Yunxin kept a straight face, and her expression did not change at all. He sighed softly and said, "Yes." Now the whole Manwan mountain was in an uproar. Bai Yunxin watched all this with a frown. Although the demonist's love was all for Li Yunxin, she couldn't help but say when she saw Qi Wen's current look, "Bah. This dragon Xiaojiu used to hide when he saw me. He was as timid as a needle. Now he died, and he was even more useless." The evil lord sighed. "He was different from you. Although he was about the same age as you, he was just a child who was not loved or disciplined." Alas! The old lord of Dongting was by his side, but he didn't dare to be too close to him. Bai Yunxin snorted disdainfully and said, "Now that the Lord of Dao can't do anything." "Lord?" The evil lord smiled slightly. "Not necessarily." Although Li Yunxin has a way to control the skeleton, he must know that it is also a very scary thing. Otherwise, he wouldn't have asked us to destroy one and leave only one. He kept it for two reasons. One was to use it as evidence, and the other was to frighten the demons, so that they would be patient enough to listen to him until now. At this time, since the truth is clear, I guess he will destroy the skeleton first, in case he can't control it anymore. Bai Yunxin blinked. This is a good thing. The evil lord was silent for a while and looked at Bai Yunxin. "Think about it. How can you stand here and talk to me now?" The female monster was stunned. Then she gasped, "Lord Tongtian, just like you, he has a way to wake up from his deep sleep." The evil lord nodded slightly. He is waiting for Li Yunxin to deal with the skeleton. Without saying anything, Bai Yunxin turned around and was about to fly up. However, the evil lord immediately pulled her back. "You just have to watch," the female monster said anxiously. "But now he has fallen into the trap of the Lord of Dao and Lord Tongtian?" Out of nowhere, the evil lord asked her another question. "Don't you really love him?" Then don't let him be too proud," the evil lord said softly. "It's better to provide help in times of need than to add flowers to brocade. According to what you said, he has always been a cold person, but he has some feelings for you. If you didn't save his life, would he treat you differently? If you really love him and want to get him, you have to make him suffer first. Otherwise, it will be hard for you to tame someone like him." Bai Yunxin still looked worried. The evil lord smiled again. "I'm not asking you to harm him. You just don't know." The female monster wanted to say something, but it was too late. Seeing that the demon kings and demon generals were agitated, and that the Dao Lord was furious but helpless, Li Yunxin sneered 3 more times and pointed at the skeleton under her feet. "This monster has the resentment of the souls of many heroes in the world. Therefore, even if it is a powerful weapon, I, the Wei River Dragon King, don't care about it. Now, I will destroy it here and now to comfort the many demons who have been killed by the Zither Master and Lord Tongtian." The demons were not very firm in their stand. They just wanted to see who did the best and who said the nicer words. Now that they heard Li Yunxin's beautiful words, they felt proud. They had also become one of the many demons. As a result, they all cheered, and the anger that was originally soaring to the heavens was instantly replaced by a joyous atmosphere, and heroic sentiments surged. At this time, Bai Yunxin finally couldn't help but shout, "You!" But her voice was drowned, and it was too late. Li Yunxin attacked very quickly, as if he was about to lose control of the skeleton, and finally decided to end it quickly. He punched the skull of the skeleton, and there was a sound of metal rubbing against stone. Just like when the evil lord killed the first skeleton, the skeleton turned into countless tiny specks of dust and vanished into thin air. After this attack, the huge illusion of Li Yunxin shrank rapidly. It became the size of a human and stood in the sky, only holding the iron chain that bound Lord Tongtian in his hand. Maybe it was because the attack just now had consumed too much energy and could no longer maintain the huge illusion. The demons cheered loudly. In the sea of cheers, the evil lord chuckled. "It's done." As soon as she finished saying this, high up in the sky, the iron chain that bound Lord Tongtian hatred suddenly made a series of sharp buzzing sounds. It was as if the person who was bound by it suddenly had endless power and was about to break the chain. The air around him was also stirred up. The strong wind was howling in all directions with him as the center. That was because of the wind pressure caused by Lord Tongtian shaking his body. The real Lord Tongtian hatred had woken up. When they saw this scene, the waves of noise that covered the mountains and plains gradually stopped. Finally, the evil Lord Taoist laughed. He did not laugh out loud. But there was a kind of coldness in his laughter, without any joy. Ha ha ha. Lord Tongtian, our ninth brother has made a name for himself in front of all the demon kings in the world. He is really capable. After saying this, he glanced at Hatred and laughed again. Ha. Even Lord Tongtian can't get rid of his magic weapon? No wonder he has the guts to ruin our plan. Hatred indeed couldn't get rid of it. However, since he couldn't break free, he didn't seem to mind and stopped. Now the real Lord of Tongtian was only a few feet away from Li Yunxin in the sky. He turned his face and stared at Li Yunxin for a while without any expression, then said, Ninth brother, you are not the Lord of Tongtian. Since you are lucky to not die, why do you still want to die? Before this, he was bound by Li Yunxin and looked dejected and helpless. Therefore, the demons didn't take him seriously and only thought that he was going to die. But now, from the conversation between the evil Lord Taoist and Lord Tongtian, even the most stupid guy realized that the dejected Lord Tongtian seemed to be a fake. And it could be seen that the mighty Long Jiao seemed to have fallen into the trap of his second brother and fifth brother. Haha, this is really a big show. Since that was the case, the crimes that he had listed in the past regarding Long Da and Long Air were also doubtful. This Lord Tongtian Yizi actually had some prestige among the group of demons. Now that he showed up again and showed his majestic aura, some kind of awe emerged from the hearts of the demons again. Therefore, after only a quarter of an hour, no one made any noise. After saying this, Hatred looked down at the iron chain on his body and shook it slightly. The iron chain rattled. Hatred raised his head again and stared at Li Yunxin calmly. Untie it. I will spare your life. Li Yunxin looked dumbfounded. He stared straight at Yizi for a while, then said, You, how could you? No, you. He took a step back and suddenly shouted, You are still in my hands. How dare you say you will spare my life? However, almost everyone could hear it. His shout seemed to be full of fear. Chapter 552. Hatred was still very calm. He was neither angry nor smiling. Of course. Ninth brother, what do you dare to do to me? Li Yunxin roared. I will kill you. In the end, Yizi smiled slightly. Oh, ninth brother, you kill me here, and then? He paused and his smile suddenly disappeared. His face became gloomy and scary again. Then do you still want to live? Do you think I don't know what you are using now? Li Yunxin's expression froze for a moment. The next moment he suddenly frowned, and his eyes were like two sharp arrows piercing towards Hatred. What? What did you say? At this moment, Hatred's body was still bound by the green iron chain, and the iron chain was still in Li Yunxin's control. However, when he looked at Yizi now, it was as if he was looking at a ferocious beast. It was as if it was not him who controlled Yizi, but Yizi who controlled him. Humph! Hatred snorted coldly. I know the things on Cloud Mountain better than you. When they were talking, they used their supernatural powers, so that their voices could be heard by the people hidden in the mountains. But at this moment, Hatred retracted his supernatural power. Only Li Yunxin and Lord Taoist could hear his voice. You, Li Yunxin stared at him. You are bullsh asterisk ting. But when he said this, his expression was solemn. His eyes never left Hatred's face. Obviously, he wanted to see any trace of evidence on Hatred's face that could make him overturn what Hatred said before. This meant that, in fact, he seemed to have believed the words of the Lord Tongtian. Hatred sneered again. However, his smile had already become more and more composed. What you are using to seal this battlefield now is the Heaven and Earth Mother Plate. What you are using to control those two monsters is also the Mother Universe Plate. Even if you use the Heaven and Earth Mother Plate in this illusion, Li Yunxin shouted in a low voice, you made up something and you want to. Black and white gas, right? Hatred looked at him calmly. On the Mother and Earth Plate, There are black and white energies circulating, which represent the yin and yang energies in this world. The child plate of the heaven and earth mother child plate was made of special iron. The mountains and rivers of this world are engraved on it. The black and white gases are flowing in the engravings, aren't they? Li Yunxin's expression was dull. How did you? Humph. The Tao Lord and I have been scheming for many years. Then, we borrowed Zither Monarch's hand to create the great momentum from before. I was so close to picking it up, but in the end, you accidentally snatched it first. Ninth brother, should I say that your luck is too good, or that it's terrible? The Tao Lord was not far from the two of them to begin with. Now that he heard what Hatred said, he smiled slightly. In my opinion, it's too bad, extremely bad. I can only laugh at you for thinking that victory is in your hands. But you don't know. So what if you find the Mother and Earth Mother-Child plate? Do you think you can use it? Li Yunxin's eyes widened and he actually stuttered. You. Who said I can't use it? I will now. Of course you can use it. But it's just a temporary measure. Hatred shook his head. At this moment, he was still restrained by the soul-reaping iron chain in Li Yunxin's hands. However, he didn't look like a prisoner but a king. Li Yunxin's aura and demeanor, when compared to him, made him seem like a helpless nobody. The Mother and Earth Mother-Child plate can change the earth energy and luck of the world. With that treasure in hand, the entire world would become one person's. If you want the mountains to rise, it's something that can happen in the blink of an eye. If you want the big river to change its course, it's also something that can happen in the blink of an eye. If you want to create dozens, hundreds, or even thousands of heavenly abodes, it's also not difficult. With that thing, you will become the ruler of the world, the living God. Hatred looked at Li Yunxin. Can you do it now? At this time, Li Yunxin finally couldn't say a word. His mouth opened and closed, and after a long time he said, "What the hell is going on?" Qingjun. He also. Hatred turned to look at Lord Taoist and smiled. Suddenly, he dragged his voice a little, as if he finally said something more interesting. Qingjun, Hatred said, young dragon master, has the world in his heart. He wants to change the world, see the world as his own, and make a great cause. Ha ha ha. Our young dragon master only cares about the general trend of the world, the future of demons, and the rise and fall of humanity. How could he care about trivial things like heaven and earth mother and child plate, and Lord Tongtian hatred? Since young dragon master wants to clear the world for himself, we are happy to borrow his power to get what we want. It's a pity that our young dragon master. Yazi glanced at Li Yunxin from the corner of his eyes. You injured him heavily, didn't you? The Guanyuan crypt refines the demon power into his body, but you reversed it at the critical moment. I'm afraid he will be no different from a disabled person. Alas, heaven and earth mother and child plate. You don't have the Anata pen, and only use brute force to reverse the chi of two elements, but you can have such power. Fifth brother, it's indeed a good thing. Young dragon master. Ha! Lord Taoist smiled. You're just biting off more than you can chew. There's nothing to talk about. Li Yunxin can't wrap her head around the truth that no one can figure out. Something's not right. Qingjun also said that she wanted to find the treasure that controls all the demons in the world. How could she not know about it? Nonsense. I don't believe it. At this moment, Li Yunxin seemed to be a little crazy, but Hatred and Lord Taoist seemed to understand his craziness, and there was nothing they could do at the moment, because at least for now, Hatred was still restrained by Li Yunxin, and Li Yunxin was still controlling the heaven and earth mother and child plate on Cloud Mountain. But Hatred and Tao Wu didn't seem to be afraid of the power that Li Yunxin had, or they planned to use the information they had, which was actually another kind of powerful power, to make Li Yunxin afraid to use the power he had, and even to hand it over obediently. Because everyone only thinks that rumor is a rumor. Stupid brother. Hatred looked at him playfully. And no one in this world believes that thing really exists like me and Lord Taoist. Because only the two of us have seen the Anata pen, and know that the heaven and earth mother and child plate does exist. Li Yunxin finally couldn't help it. The Anata pen? What is it? Hatred and Lord Taoist laughed again. Li Yunxin had entered a state of madness because of panic and shock. And now, in this state of madness, he began to be interested in what they were talking about. This meant that his reason was slowly giving in. His will began to weaken, and he even took the initiative to hand over part of the control of this matter to the two of them. He asked a question that only the two of them knew the answer to. Hatred glanced at Lord Taoist. Fifth brother, tell him. Let him know what he has in his hands now. If he gives that thing to us and cooperates with us, what can he get? Lord Taoist sighed softly. It seemed that he didn't like to waste time sharing the secrets he knew with people like Li Yunxin. But in the end, he still slowly opened his mouth. Many years ago, before the Red Cloud Palace was built, I traveled around the world. I wanted to understand something and create the great Tao that I pursued. When he said these words, the smoke on his body became thicker. It was as if the incense in front of a statue of a god was becoming more and more prosperous. And it also made his face more and more hazy. Later, I walked to the Red Abyss, and by chance, I found the Inata pen and got it. When Lord Taoist said this, Hatred frowned almost imperceptibly. It seemed that he also wanted to know the details of how Lord Taoist got the Inata pen. It was just that Lord Taoist had never told him in detail before. And now when he told Li Yunxin, he only mentioned it briefly, which made Lord Tongtian a little disappointed. There are other relics where I got the Inata pen. There are ancient inscriptions on the relics. The words are difficult and obscure, but the general meaning can be understood. That is to say, Lao Ai paused and looked impatiently at Li Yunxin, who had a panicked expression. This is really the owner of the Inata pen. He used to be the managing pen in the formation of the Mother and Child Universe disk. And the Heaven and Earth Mother and Child Plate Array is a powerful array that can change the flow of qi in the world and the topography of mountains and rivers. But later on, there was a great war that almost destroyed the entire world. The owner of the Inata pen died. However, it was not because he was not strong enough, but because he was betrayed and plotted against by his companions. He was unwilling to accept this, so he left behind these words on his deathbed. He wanted. When he said this, he looked at Hatred again. The person who wants to find this treasure will open the Heaven and Earth Mother and Child plate again in the future to fulfill his last wish. Li Yunxin seemed to be attracted by his incredible story, and his whole mind was immersed in it. When he heard this, he subconsciously asked, "Last wish? What last wish?" He looked like he believed it. When he faced the Taoist Lord, he was majestic and arrogant. However, in the blink of an eye, the situation was reversed. Now he looked like a fool. This made the Taoist Lord feel strange pleasure in his contempt, but he still snorted coldly and said, "Last wishes, to destroy all the gods in the world." Li Yunxin was stunned. Gods in the world? But soon he frowned. What gods in the world? Aren't the time gods the demons? You want, idiot. The Taoist Lord raised his eyebrows, making his blood-red eyes look even more terrifying. Today's humanity, demons and celestial beings, all appeared after that war. The gods in the world before the catastrophe are the celestial beings today. Li Yunxin blinked, lowered his eyes for a very short time, and then looked up again. Neither the Taoist Lord nor the Lord Tongtian noticed this detail. But if Lu Gongzan was here, he would know. When Brother Xian was seriously thinking about a problem, it was very difficult for ordinary people to see it. They could only see him leisurely, as if he didn't have any thoughts at all. But in fact his mind was working very fast. But there was another situation that was extremely rare. Just like now, one thing made him lower his eyes. This meant that he was thinking so attentively and thinking so fast, that even a person like him was temporarily distracted, and revealed a flaw. After that he raised his head again, his eyes full of surprise. How arrogant. This. What Heaven and Earth Mother Earth plate? It's nothing more than mobilizing the Earth Chi. How dare you boast about destroying all the celestial beings, you really? These words seemed to have finally scratched the Taoist Lord's itch. He smiled coldly. Nothing more? Li Yunxin. Now that the Heaven and Earth Mother Earth plate is in your hands, it's like a Xianmen saint's flying sword in the hands of a mortal. That mortal doesn't know how to control it. It's nothing more than cutting melons and vegetables. For example, you say it's sharp today but you think it's just sharp. But you don't know. If it's used properly, not to mention cutting gold and jade, it can even split a mountain and cut a river. Heaven and earth, Mother Earth plate. The Taoist Lord shouted. What you're using now is only the child plate. There's another mother plate that you don't know where is, right? Even if you know it's useless. The changes you're deducing on the child plate have to be printed on the mother plate with this in a top pen for it to last. Otherwise, it'll be like you today. Forcefully reversing the chi of heaven and earth must be extremely strenuous, and the effect will be short-lived. Just now, you killed the skeleton instead of continuing to use it to subdue the demons. You also felt that it was getting more and more difficult to control. After hearing his words, Li Yunqin finally fell silent and did not speak for a long time. Seeing him like this, the Taoist Lord snorted coldly and ignored him. Hatred said, Now you know. You should also know what kind of power this thing can unleash in our hands. Previously in the mountains, you were afraid that I would devour you and harm you. You should know by now that your mere dragon soul isn't worth my time. If it wasn't for little Nine mysteriously running over to me, and the upcoming battle, I wouldn't have the mind to pay attention to anything else. I wouldn't even want him. So, hand over the heaven and earth subplate. With the Anata pen, the Taoist Lord and I will be the rulers of the world. By then who cares if you live or die? Hatred was no longer expressionless when he said this. His tone was more vivid and sincere. But after a few encounters with you, I know that you're a mere transcendent state cultivator. But in such a short time, you're able to fight against the most powerful beings in the world. You're not someone easy to control. So don't even think about staying by our side and getting a share of the pie. The Taoist Lord, and I can promise you nothing more than to spare your life and let you go. But this is all before. Now, under the premise that you immediately remove this iron chain and hand over the heaven and earth subplate. Ninth brother, Hatred looked at him. Even a demon's lifespan is as short as the morning dew when compared to heaven and earth. Life is short, you'd better not make any more mistakes. Li Yunqin was silent for a while, and then sighed. I see, he said softly. I say, why does this fifth brother Daolord dare to jump out with a mere she mystical cultivation when I still have the absolute advantage here? I was curious. That's why I spent time here to listen to this. Up until now, the time I spent was not wasted. Li Yunqin raised his head. The expression on his face was slightly calmer. So second brother and fifth brother have this kind of support. No wonder they're not afraid of me. Chapter 553. Hatred, who seemed to have everything under his control, didn't notice the slight change in Li Yunqin's expression. In fact, he regarded Li Yunqin's calmness as one of the signs of surrender. His tone softened. And because, even if you kill me here you can't leave. I, the Lord Tongtian, still have some power among the demons in the world. Although those idiots on the ground are fence-sitters, who will follow the crowd as long as someone with a little guidance. But you don't have any reputation or power among the demons. You're just an outsider. If you kill me here, if you don't have a great merit that can convince all the demons in the world, your fifth brother Taoist just needs to say a little bit, and you'll become the target of everyone. Although you have the subplate in your hand, you're starting to feel tired. At that time, nearly 10,000 demon kings and demon generals will attack you together. You won't be able to escape. I know you're a person who cherishes your life. Although you're brave, you won't make unnecessary sacrifices. Hatred said in a low voice. So you have no other choice. Li Yunqin stared at Hatred and Taoist for a while, and suddenly clenched his teeth. I'm not willing. He lost his composure and shouted. I'm not willing. Why? I risked my life to get this treasure. It turns out to be such a powerful treasure. Now I have to give it to you. I'm not willing. At this point, he didn't seem to want to talk in secret anymore. He wanted all the demons in the world to hear him, and let everyone know. So he used his supernatural power again. It's you and Zither lady who hurt me. He clenched his teeth and said gloomily. In this way, his voice was not as weak as when he talked in secret. People could only hear his anger. You two asked me to go to Xianmen to find out the truth. I thought it was dangerous, but it was also for the prosperity of the demon race. So I went. But after I did it, you hurt me. Do you dare to tell me how you hurt me?" Hatred and Taoist looked at each other and sighed helplessly. This Li Yunxin, it was one thing that she didn't know what was in her hands. Now that he knew, he couldn't bear to hand it over. But if he didn't do that, he wouldn't be able to live. In the end, he lost his composure and flew into a rage out of humiliation. Looking at his usual appearance, it was really lamentable that he had such moments now. However, it was also laughable. The funny thing was, did he think that he could win the sympathy of all the demons in the world by saying that he was wronged and that he was framed? You still don't understand the demons. Since Li Yunxin had such a wish, the Lord Tongtian used his divine sense and spoke. He looked at Li Yunxin with pity. Do you think this is a secular court, ninth brother? A victim tearfully confesses his grievances and how he was framed in court. And then can you get sympathy? Ha ha ha. Hatred burst into laughter. You can ask the demon kings and demon generals down there. If they really know that you are wronged and stupid, and that you have fallen into our trap, and ended up in a pitiful situation. His smile faded. Will they sympathize with you, stand up for you, help you up, or will they step on you with 1 foot each and trample you into the mud? What Yizi said before was right. The demon kings were indeed people who didn't have a standpoint. And the Lord Tongtian himself was indeed quite powerful among the demons. When Li Yunxin was arrogant and scolded the Lord Taoist, they cheered and applauded him. Until now, when Hatred said this, even though he was still restrained, the demons all burst into laughter, as if another year had passed. But this laughter was mocking Li Yunxin. This demon transformed from a mortal was really ridiculous. He still had the ridiculous thoughts of a mortal. Li Yunxin looked at a loss for a moment, as if he didn't expect such an outcome. Seeing him like this, Hatred realized that it was a good time to shatter his hope and pride. So he snorted coldly. If you want to humiliate yourself, I don't mind wasting my breath to talk to you. Ninth brother, what you want to say and feel wronged is the young dragon master, and I wanted to know what was going on in the Mystic Gate. So you volunteered to go there. Then you found out that the young dragon master doubted your stand and planted a restriction in your body, right? Hatred smiled coldly. Which of the demon kings didn't use such a trick? Do you think you are like those idiots in the mortal world, using people without suspicion? At this point, the demons all cheered and agreed. But the evil lord, and Bai Yunxin frowned slightly. Previously, the three of them had a secret conversation in the sky. It didn't last long, so they couldn't hear it. They didn't use their supernatural power to eavesdrop. Once they did that, the three of them would know. They were asking for a snub. Therefore, when they saw Li Yunxin and Hatred's attitude suddenly change, and suddenly talking about grievance and humiliation, they were confused. But after all, the evil lord shook his head lightly. Everything was within her expectations. Li Yunxin didn't dare to kill the Lord Tongtian. Sigh. She turned her head slightly to look at her daughter. She saw the slight disappointment and loneliness on Bai Yunxin's face. As if the Li Yunxin in her heart shouldn't be like this. He shouldn't be in such a passive position. At this moment, Hatred said again. Later on, when you were on the battlefield, the words you said before you faked your death were considered to be courageous. If you really died at that time, the heroes might still feel sentimental when they talk about you in the future. But it's a pity that you jumped out and did these things. You forced me to say all these. Have you thought about how the demon kings would feel when they see you now? As he said this, he glanced sideways at the mountains. Immediately, the demon kings and demon generals started to make noise again, letting out waves of laughter. At least there was one thing that the Lord Tongtian was right. Demons respected the strong the most. They respected the strong, but they weren't willing to submit to the strong. This sounded contradictory, but it wasn't inexplicable. They weren't smart enough, but they were brave enough. Naturally, they respected the strong. But because of this, they weren't used to human etiquette and morality. They were naturally rebellious. Although they respected the strong, it was difficult for them to become servile like humans. Moreover, human morality was extremely weak in them. But now that they heard about Li Yunxin's tragic past, They didn't think that hatred and the young dragon master went too far. They often did this kind of thing. They only felt that the victim was too stupid. In essence, human law and morality are also to protect the weak and maintain the stability of society. However, the number of demons was very small. It was difficult for them to form a large and stable society, like humans. Things like law and morality were of little value to them. Therefore, it was the opposite of human society. The weak were not only not protected, they were better off dead. Because when they died, there would be more space and resources for the strong. Amidst the laughter, Bai Yunxin widened her eyes. Jun Shang, I'll go take down that hatred. Hatred was seriously injured, and only had half a head left. Although he looked majestic, he was no match for Bai Yunxin in a real fight. Nor was he a match for the current Li Yunxin. Although this female demon was fierce and cruel, it was only from a human's point of view. Compared to other demons, she was more like a human, because her father was Golden Rock, and her mother was Chao Feng. Both of them were great demons with high cultivation levels, and they had been influenced by the human world. But the evil lord pulled her back. If you don't want to hurt him, don't do it. If something happens to hatred, Lord Taoist is still here. Li Yunxin was Dragon's son, but even Big Brother, Second Brother, and Fifth Brother couldn't tolerate him, let alone the demons. He had only become a demon for a few months. He didn't have any great achievements or powerful methods, so the demon kings all treated him as a human. Under such circumstances, a human killed a famous great demon. No matter how stupid the demon kings were, they would know what to do. Looking at this scene, Fifth Brother and Second Brother seemed to have planned this for a long time. When she said this, she heard Li Yunxin shouting angrily in the sky. But you killed all the demons in the world, and wanted to use the souls of demons to refine. Hatred didn't even want to hear him finish. He laughed and said, "So what? Those who are dead are already dead. Can they still come and settle the score with me? All the demon kings here are alive. What does it have to do with them? But there are so many fertile lands left for the rest of the demon kings and demon generals to share. They can't wait to thank me." Ha 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 ha. What he said was not exaggerated. Otherwise, when Li Yunxin drove the two skeletons to the evil lord's side, how could Bai Yunxin persuade the demons under the evil lord to fight the skeletons? Wasn't it the same as what they said about dividing the world? The human dynasty complained that the territory was not big enough, and the demons also complained that the territory was not big enough. In the words of Li Yunxin's world, the demons had to adopt some extensive management methods under the pressure of Xianmen. The great demon didn't dare to show his divinity everywhere, and didn't dare to gather incense on a large scale. He could only let his name spread among the people to a limited extent. So although there were indeed demons in this world, and there were indeed rumors about them, most people only took the rumors as legends. They were between believing and not believing. The power of faith brought by this kind of faith was very thin. Because of this, the demons needed more land and more people in order to make their cultivation progress extremely slowly. And just like the dragon cult that Li Yunxin created in the city of Wei, maybe it was the so-called intensive management in his previous world. There weren't many people who believed in him, but most of them were fanatics. The quantity was small but the quality was high. It could also bring him a strong power of faith. However, he had only dared to do so because he had a chance to do so. He didn't do it for incense, but to lure people into the trap. As a result, even though Yazi said so openly, those monster kings really didn't have any reaction. Although some of their friends died, the meaning of these words in the world of demons was different from the world of humans. They just mumbled a few more words and then stopped. Even if there was really injustice, they were like Bai Yunxin's thoughts. Wrapped up by more emotions, they couldn't stir up any waves. Finally, hatred stopped laughing. He stared at Li Yunxin silently and calmly for a while, and said in a low voice, "So, ninth brother, why make a fool of yourself in front of the heroes of the world? Only the strong deserve to have great power. There is a saying in the secular world, treasuring a jade ring becomes a crime. Now that you have great power, it will only bring trouble and disaster to yourself." Hatred smiled and shook his head. At the same time, he pointed at the ground. "Those on the ground are your trouble and disaster. Behind hatred, the Taoist lord also smiled coldly. Seeing how cowardly you are now, you should know your place. Li Yunxin, hand it over, and I can guarantee that you won't die. What I said is true. The fiend lord also sighed softly. Then, he heard Li Yunxin also laugh. This laugh came very strangely. He was originally very angry, but now he relaxed, as if he was relieved of a heavy burden. Then, Li Yunxin also stopped smiling. The calm expression on his face was very similar to that of hatred. He said sincerely, "Second brother and fifth brother misunderstood. I want second brother to tell me what happened before, not to make a fool of myself. How can I not know the habits of the demons in the world? How can I not cherish my life? So second brother and fifth brother think that since I cherish my life, I won't fight to the death here, and I will hand over the heaven and earth mother disc in exchange for my own life. Their thinking is very correct. If I were in your position, I would also do the same. Break force with force with force. It feels great to make someone who is far more powerful than me yield to me." But Li Yunxin paused. At this moment, hatred and Tao Wu both frowned slightly. They finally realized that there was something wrong with Li Yunxin's tone. He was too calm. Then they heard Li Yunxin continue. "But first, I have always been a person who doesn't care much about worldly possessions such as Dharma treasures. I have died many times, and I don't care much about life and death. Second, I once promised the ninth young master one thing. If I promise someone else, if I find it difficult, it's okay to break my promise. But if I can do it, there is no reason not to do it. Third, second brother said that the demon kings below are trouble, and I agree. But since it is difficult for me to solve the trouble, then I will solve the troublemaker." Fourth, Tao Wu frowned and interrupted him. "Don't give me that 1, 2, 3 for crap. I hate this kind of tone the most in my life. If you have something to say." Li Yunxin sighed and said, "All right." Then he exerted a little force, and the iron chain in his palm clattered and clattered. That hatred was tied up by the iron chain, and had no place to borrow strength. Therefore, he was pulled over effortlessly like a kite. The dragon son of the conferred Lord Tongtian frowned. "If you—" But his words stopped abruptly. Li Yunxin raised his right hand naturally, and inserted it into the half of his head that was missing. In fact, because the wound had begun to heal gradually, Li Yunxin's finger didn't go in the first time. But he calmly raised his finger, and tapped on the wound with the newly grown sharp nail. During this short period of time, hatred frowned, as if he was angry and confused by Li Yunxin's extremely rude action. But soon Li Yunxin's hand reached into his head, and turned it over again. Hatred's expression finally froze on his face, and soon became distorted because of the loosening of his facial muscles. The incarnation of Lord Wei River, which was formed by the earth chi in this battlefield, had great power. He crushed the second dragon son's brain, as if he was crushing a piece of tofu. Then, when everyone suddenly became strangely silent and at a loss, hatred's head was smashed with a bang. The headless corpse of the Lord Tongtian fell on the land that used to be his Taoist field, and two extremely faint figures were hooked by the iron chain, and disappeared into the sleeve of the incarnation in a flash. At this time, Li Yunxin's incarnation shook his hand and sighed. He said to the Lord Taoist, whose expression seemed to be locked, "Alas. In fact, the reason why I called the second brother so much was not to make a fool of myself. But these things were not said by him, but by me. No one believed it. Since he said it, I have to let everyone in the world know. Anyone who offends me and makes me suffer, even if it's my second brother, I will kill him without hesitation. But it's a pity that brothers kill each other and brothers fight each other. It's really a tragedy in the world. I can't bear to see it." He looked at the Lord Taoist sadly. "The fifth brother and the second brother are good friends. Do you want to accompany him?" The Tao Lord finally snapped out of his daze, which lasted for several breaths. His robe billowed like a raging flame, and his eyes looked as if they were about to drip blood. "How dare you? There are many things I dare to do. My courage is also greater than you can imagine." Li Yunxin raised his eyebrows, and the whole sky also became gloomy because of his momentum. "Take a guess, what else do I dare to do?" The Lord Taoist's figure suddenly retreated 100 feet, and his voice sounded like muffled thunder in this space. Do you see the power of this Li Yunqin? A few months ago, he was just in the transcendent state, but now he can kill the Lord Tongtian. It's because he has a treasure in his hand, called the Mother and Child Plate of Heaven and Earth. And whoever gets it will become the master of the demons. If someone above the true state gets it, he can immediately advance to the Grand Supreme. The Lord Taoist retreated another 100 feet and shouted. He and the treasure are both on the Cloud Mountain, but they haven't been completely refined, so they can't use it as they wish. Die or become the master of the world. It's up to you. Chapter 554. However, although demons were demons, they had taken human form and still had emotions. When they had emotions, they would be surprised and dumbfounded. Now they saw, not long ago, Lord Tongtian Long Air was still in the sky majestically, and Li Yunqin looked embarrassed and cowardly. But now, Lord Tongtian was killed. Many muddle-headed demons didn't even understand what Li Yunqin said after that. They only knew that the 9th dragon son suddenly turned hostile and killed another one in front of all the demons and 2 mystic realm dragon son. They were shocked speechless for a long time. The entire mountain was deathly still. Even the Fiend Lord, who had seen much of the world and had been through hundreds of battles, was frowning at this moment. He stared at the illusion of Li Yunqin high up in the sky. After a dozen breaths, the Tao Lord retreated another few hundred feet before saying, "What is he trying to do?" Bai Yunqin's face was really white, but it was ghastly, because she knew what Li Yunqin meant by doing this. The remaining demon kings in the mountain were all battle-hardened. In terms of combat power, they were the elites among the elites of the demons in the world. Although the words justice and reason were a joke in the world of demons, they could always be used as an excuse and an entry point, just like how they were used by the real nobles in the mortal world. Lord Tongtian had always been famous, and he was the elder brother. It was fine if Li Yunqin killed him somewhere else, but if he killed him in front of all the demons, the Taoist Lord had a reason. He immediately retreated 2,000 feet to save his own life, and then encouraged the demons to swarm him. The Fiend Lord and Bai Yunqin didn't know what the Heaven and Earth Mother Plate was. However, looking at the Taoist Lord and Li Yunqin's behavior, they could roughly guess that it was the legendary treasure that could control all the demons in the world. Previously, the demon monarchs had charged forward bravely on the battlefield, because many people wanted to obtain it. After the Rain of Fire, many demons fled into the mountains, but did not leave. It was also because they did not want to let go of that thing, and wanted to stay and observe the situation. A demon's desire was far stronger than a mortal's, and this strong desire was not restrained by the ethics and morals of the secular world, so it grew stronger. Before this treasure only existed in legends. However, looking at Li Yunqin's methods now, it seemed to be true. Such a thing was right in front of him. And the Tao Lord had said that Li Yunqin had yet to completely refine it. It was becoming more and more difficult to control it. Most likely, none of the demon kings would leave obediently. They would all attack Yunshan from all sides and seize the treasure. Now this Li Yunqin was only one person. Previously, when there were tens of thousands of cultivators from the celestial sect of wonders blocking the attack, a group of demons shouted and rushed hundreds of miles forward. At this point, how could he stop them? Was he courting death? Just for a breath of air? What did he mean by, "I will kill anyone who offends me and causes me to suffer losses, even if it is my second brother"? After about 10 breaths of silence, the evil lord and Bai Yunqin heard a voice. The voice was not loud, but it reverberated in the sky above the mountains. There was even a hint of demonic aura. However, this voice sounded like thunder at this moment. "Tao Lord, is the Heaven and Earth Mother and Child Plate you mentioned true? Don't use us as your weapons, and get involved in the civil war between you brothers." She sounded like a female demon. His tone was calm and composed, not anxious at all. However, everyone knew what would happen once these questions were answered without any doubt. After this voice, the mountains were still silent. At this moment, the Tao Lord had already retreated 3,000 feet. From afar, he was just a small red dot. However, his voice did not soften at all. His tone was firm. When have I, the Tao Lord, ever deceived anyone? However, the demons did not fall for his trick and remained silent. He continued, Okay, since you want to know, watch. After saying this, he rubbed his hands. Immediately, a small, shiny thing flew from his palms into the air. The thing flew so fast that no one could see it clearly for a moment. However, the next moment, the little thing flew to the center of the field and immediately radiated colorful lights. The demons thought that it was some kind of supernatural power and were slightly shocked. However, they soon realized that it was nothing else but an image. A huge and blurry image appeared in midair. Everyone on the mountain could see it clearly. At this moment, the illusion of Li Yunqin was still standing quietly in the sky. He did not speak nor did he leave. There was no expression on his face. It was as if the person controlling the illusion was busy with other things and had no time to care about it. Therefore, the first thing that the demon kings saw was a blood-red eye. It seemed that the owner of the blood-red eye had fallen to the ground. The artifact that captured this image was facing this face and was extremely close to it. Therefore, half of this person's face occupied half of the sky. The rest was blue. The eyes were very round and looked like the eyes of the Tao Lord. There was no blood on his face. It was very pure white. It was as if there was a mask on his face, without even a single pore. However, the faint golden pupil in the blood-red eye flickered slightly, as if it was about to be extinguished. It seemed to mean that the life of the owner of this face was about to end. This image recorded what he looked like when he was dying. All the demon kings were shocked and confused. They didn't know what the Tao Lord was doing. Suddenly, the image shook again, and the person who fell to the ground began to speak. All the demon kings came from every corner of the Midland. In many areas of the Midland, the languages spoken by the people were different as well, and were quite different from each other. Spirit creatures had become human beings. In order to communicate with each other, they naturally had to speak the human language. Otherwise, they couldn't just meow and bark every time they saw each other. Therefore, the demon kings all had different accents, as if they were tourists from different parts of the world. However, none of the spirit creatures seemed to have heard the words of the person in the image. The accent was very strange, and the words he used were also very strange. But the strange thing was that after hearing his words, they weren't completely clueless. They could understand some of the words he said. However, this person was about to die, so he couldn't speak clearly. All the spirit creatures could hear were some words and a few sentences. Then found it. God's era. Ridiculous. Mother Universe plate. The power to conquer the world. Avenge me. Destroy all the gods in the world. Only the last 6 words were said in a coherent and forceful manner. But after saying these 6 words, his blood-red eyes suddenly became lifeless. Even the mysterious light in his eyes disappeared. The Tao Lord immediately waved his hand again, and the shiny little thing immediately flew back into his palm. However, the illusion in the sky didn't dissipate immediately. It was still there. When he released it, none of the demon kings noticed. But now that he wanted to take it back, many people paid attention. Therefore, more than one person could clearly see that the thing actually looked like a jade slip. It was a completely transparent jade scroll. After watching and listening to this, the group of spirit creatures seemed to be discussing noisily for a while. Then the demonic voice said, "The Tao Lord is very powerful. It's not difficult for him to use some tricks to create this illusion to fool us." The Tao Lord snorted coldly in the sky. "Look up in the sky and see what you can see." The group of spirit creatures then carefully looked at the sky that was presented by the illusion for a while. After a while, a voice exclaimed softly, "Is that thing Cloud Mountain?" His exclamation caused the group of spirit creatures to make noise for a while. In the end, everyone saw. The sky behind the face was slightly gloomy, and there were thick clouds. The face fell to the ground, and the wind seemed to be quite strong. Therefore, from time to time, the wind would blow, making the scene even more blurry. Originally, people would not pay attention to the background behind him, but after being reminded by the voice, they realized that in the gloomy sky, there seemed to be something floating in the sky far away. Its size and shape were similar to the huge cloud mountain that was currently on the ground. The only difference was that there seemed to be some crisscrossing things on the surface of the thing, as if it was building something. In other words, the huge cloud mountain was being built or modified. This discovery made the group of spirit creatures gasp. Everyone knew that Cloud Mountain was built by the Celestials for those stinky Taoists to live in, but no one knew when exactly it was built, so they tacitly agreed that the history of Cloud Mountain was as long as this world. Then the scene that appeared in the sky now, wasn't it the scene when this world was first created? Or, the scene that you are seeing is the scene before this life and the previous life. The Taoist Lord's deep and powerful voice sounded at this time. The heaven and earth mother and child plate of Cloud Mountain is also a relic of a deity in the previous life. Now that you have seen this, do you still have any doubts? If one had to say that there were doubts, naturally there were. For example, many of the demon kings in the mountain could also use their supernatural powers to create such an image. But the problem was, unless the Taoist Lord had foreseen Long Air's death, and Li Yunxin causing such a scene in advance. Otherwise, he would not have been able to create such a thing in advance. At this time, they heard someone shouting from the direction of the foot of Cloud Mountain in the distance. Yes, yes, there are indeed treasures on Cloud Mountain, many treasures, and also the heaven and earth mother and child plate. There are many elixirs. Eating them can make you immortal and improve your power greatly. There are also many divine weapons and precious armors. They are all relics of the previous sages. Now that the defense in Cloud Mountain is weak, what are you waiting for? Then, the shouting person's figure shot over like lightning. The demon kings focused their eyes and immediately burst into an uproar. The person who came was a Taoist priest, wearing the robe of a high-level cultivator in the Xianmen. But this person's hair was disheveled, and his expression was crazy. It seemed that he did not care that he had broken into the gathering place of the demons, nor was he worried that he would be torn apart alive by the demons. He stood high in the sky and waved his hands and feet, saying, "I know how to enter Cloud Mountain. I'll take you there. You can take the treasures, and kill Li Yunxin." But a demon shouted angrily, "Where did this person come from? What nonsense are you saying? Tear him alive and sacrifice him to my brother." This person shouted angrily, "I'm Su Yusong, the master of calligraphy of Cloud Mountain. How dare you, demon?" The demons originally wanted to rush up into the sky and blast him down, but when they heard him call himself the master of calligraphy, they immediately roared with laughter. This guy's appearance was ferocious and ugly, like an evil ghost. His Taoist robe was also tattered and stained with blood. With such an appearance, no one would believe him even if he was a sect master or a sect master, let alone a sage. When they laughed like this, the person was immediately annoyed. Suddenly he stopped smiling, gritted his teeth and winked. "You don't believe me? Don't believe me? Don't believe me? Bah! I'm Su Yusong, the master of Cloud Mountain." After he said this, his body suddenly shook. After this shake, his body expanded, and golden mystic light burst out from his body. It was as if a god was hidden under his tattered clothes and unkempt appearance. In the blink of an eye, a golden divine lord that was 1,000 feet tall appeared in this world. Wasn't this the appearance of Su Yusong, the master of Cloud Mountain, and Zhuomuja on the battlefield a few days ago? The demons were dead silent, and then there was an uproar. Instantly, hundreds of figures soared into the sky and were about to blast him down. However, the Taoist lord, who was originally in the distance, appeared in a flash and stopped those demons. He shouted, "What's the rush? Don't you see how he looks now? Do you need to lower yourselves to attack him? It won't be too late to ask him first." After saying this, he immediately turned to look at Su Yusong. "Master of Cloud Mountain, let me ask you, is it true that there is a Mother Universe plate on Cloud Mountain?" In fact, the huge golden figure disappeared as soon as it appeared. After it disappeared, the person's expression seemed to be much more haggard. It seemed that he had forcefully used up a lot of essence chi. At this moment, when he heard the Taoist lord's question, he immediately said eagerly, "Yes, yes, I've seen that Mother Universe plate when I was a sage, but I don't know how to use it. It's just a small plate, golden and shiny. The Taoist lord coughed and interrupted him, then shouted, "You also said that you know how to enter Cloud Mountain. Is that true?" The person said again, "Of course it's true. Although there must be restrictions at the entrance. It's better than all of you rushing in randomly." At this moment, someone among the demons shouted, "Don't listen to his nonsense. Maybe the celestial sect sent him here to harm people." However, the Taoist lord ignored him and said, "Let me ask you again. Since you're the sage of the celestial sect, how did you end up like this? Why did you ask us to attack Cloud Mountain?" The person immediately looked up and laughed deafeningly. "Ha ha ha ha. Why? You just want that Li Yunxin to die." The Taoist lord gave him a few looks. It was unknown if the person understood, but he continued to shout, "That Li Yunxin snuck into Cloud Mountain and stole that Mother Universe plate. His power increased greatly. He cast evil spells and sent fiery rain demons to capture the celestial sect, and the demons in one fell swoop. Didn't you see it? Then he killed my lover. He destroyed my physical body. I have to take revenge. I have to. At this moment, the demons could see that this person had already gone mad. But no matter what, Li Yunxin showed extraordinary means to kill Lord Tongtian. And then the Taoist lord released the video to explain the origin of the Mother Universe plate. Now that the sage of Cloud Mountain who had gone mad came to testify, it was actually enough. In the past, the demons could be encouraged to attack Cloud Mountain because of a rumor, let alone now that there was conclusive evidence. Their last trace of hesitation was also dispelled, and they were all excited. But at this moment, the illusion of Li Yunxin, who had not moved for a long time and stood in the sky in a daze, became lively again. Chapter 555. It was as if a clay statue had suddenly been injected with life. The body of the illusion moved, its gaze swept to the side and below, and it saw Su Yusong, whose obsession had been broken. This person had seized the bodies of other wandering souls and wanted to return to Cloud Mountain for revenge. However, Li Yunxin had blocked him outside. Now he looked more and more embarrassed. Then, hundreds of big demons jumped into the sky. They had been watching Dragon Sun's internal fight from the mountain. Now that they knew that the things in Cloud Mountain were very beneficial to them, they no longer wanted to be bystanders. They wanted to be the main characters. A demon asked him with a ferocious look, "Li Yunxin, are they telling the truth?" As soon as he opened his mouth, a demon king shouted, "Why are you asking him? Could it be that he would admit defeat? Why don't we fight our way into Cloud Mountain and find out?" Another group of demon kings echoed, Yes. Cloud Mountain is the ancestral court of Xianmen. Wow, we have accomplished what we haven't done for tens of thousands of years. Won't we be famous for eternity?" Someone sneered, "Bah, famous for eternity? Why would those people remember you, a demon, for eternity?" Someone retorted, "You're the one talking nonsense. Once we take down Cloud Mountain, the world will be ours. He will remember it however I want him to." In the time it took for them to say 7 to 8 sentences, they became angry again, as if they were about to fight. However, they kept talking about fighting their way up Cloud Mountain, but they didn't leave. They were waiting for Li Yunxin's words. It was as if he had to say something to give them more courage. It seemed that Xianmen and Cloud Mountain's suppression of the demons for tens of thousands of years had left a deep shadow in their hearts. Even now, when the saints of Xianmen were in such a sorry state, and the desire in their hearts was burning, these big demons were still hesitating. It showed how powerful they were in the past. How could the Taoist Lord and Su Yusong not know? The Taoist Lord glanced at the ground and saw the evil Lord and Bai Yunxin. Like Li Yunxin, he had some kind of mystical technique that allowed him to see through the evil Lord's condition. Therefore, he knew that she was heavily injured, so he could only remain silent and neutral in the battle between him and Li Yunxin. However, the female demon beside her, Bai Yunxin, seemed to be restless. She was twisting the evil Lord's hand, as if she wanted to do something. But his third sister, Chao Feng, stared at her sternly and said something to her, as if trying to persuade her. Bai Yunxin looked up at the sky and was about to speak. Seeing this, the Taoist lord immediately shouted at Li Yunxin's illusion. Now that things have come to this, you have no choice but to admit it. When we kill our way into Cloud Mountain, why wouldn't I? However, the illusion of Li Yunxin suddenly opened his mouth after a long silence. His tone sounded very calm, as if he was just having a casual chat. There was also a hint of helplessness in his voice. If there is, then there is. There was indeed a treasure in Cloud Mountain, the Heaven and Earth Mother Plate. It is extremely powerful. It is the legendary treasure that can control all the demons. He paused for a while, and the sky became quiet. The Taoist lord and the demon kings didn't expect him to say these words. Was he going to hand over the treasure? If he was going to hand it over, why didn't he hand it over just now? He rolled his eyes and sighed. Of course, that's your way of saying it. But in fact, the Taoist lord immediately knew that he was going to start talking nonsense. He shouted, "Don't listen to his nonsense. That treasure is indeed very powerful." Li Yunxin sighed again. Yes, yes, yes. Fifth brother is right. That treasure is indeed very powerful. In fact, it is not only able to control all the demons. Even the Black Bai Yanjun who controls all the demons, the Xianmen, and all the living beings in the world can do it. The Taoist lord was stunned. He really didn't know what he was going to say. Hearing that Li Yunxin himself said that the treasure was so tempting, another demon opened his eyes wide. Really? Really? Oh my. Then hand it over. Hand it over to me. As soon as he shouted, the other demon king scolded. T. Why is it you? It looked as if the noise was about to break out again. Li Yunxin raised her voice and said, Dear kings, please calm down. Listen to me carefully. After listening, you will understand why my fifth brother wants to harm you. The Taoist lord frowned. Don't listen to him. Li Yunxin ignored him and continued. Let me tell you how to use this treasure. This treasure actually shrinks the whole world on an iron plate. On the iron plate, there is black and white flowing gold that represents the earth chi. You can change the direction of the flowing gold on the iron plate, and you can change the chi of the world. It is thanks to this treasure that I am able to lock all of you on this battlefield. But I didn't do the fire rain before. If you really want to know, you should ask my big brother and fifth brother. When the Taoist lord heard this, he knew something was wrong. He didn't know what Li Yunxin was going to do. Therefore, a gust of wind from his palm attacked from afar, trying to disperse Li Yunxin's image. He shouted again, Don't be bewitched by him. However, before the gust of wind reached him, a white figure suddenly rushed into the sky and blocked it. The person who came was full of demonic energy and had a shocking aura. The demon kings focused their eyes and saw that it was the famous female demon Bai Yunxin. The white phoenix stopped in front of Li Yunxin's illusion and frowned. Dragon Fifth, are you guilty? Why don't you let him finish? Do you really want to harm us? The smoke on the Taoist lord's body thickened, but then it became hazy again. Good. You're protecting a good lover. Then I'll listen to him and see what else he has up his sleeves. Bai Yunxin glared at him. She glared at the demon kings beside her until they retreated and said, Li Yunxin, speak. Li Yunxin's illusion coughed softly. Thank you, Miss Bai. In that case, let me continue, Monster Kings. Let me ask you first. Do you know why we demons have been suppressed by the celestial sect of wonders for the past tens of thousands of years? Many demons had probably thought about this question. However, most of them were unable to understand it. With the knowledge and brains of the demons, how could they answer it? Thus, there was a moment of silence, and some demon kings were impatient. Bai Yunxin rolled her eyes and said, Well, it's naturally because the celestial sect of wonders is powerful. There are more high-level cultivators in the celestial sect of wonders than us, and they know how to manage and organize. It's just like how an army in the secular world is always stronger than a plate of scattered sand. Li Yunxin continued, Miss Bai is extremely smart. Let me ask Miss Bai again, why are there more high-level cultivators in the celestial sect of wonders than us? And why are they stronger than us? The two of them began to play a question-and-answer game, and one of the demon kings became impatient. He suddenly leaped forward and scolded, "You pair of dogs!" However, the moment he stepped forward, many of the demon kings around him carefully moved to the side. Thus he only said half of his sentence. The previously solemn and dignified Bai Yunxin's eyes suddenly burst with two terrifying rays of light. She stretched her arms forward, and no one could see clearly whether the space between the two transformed into a pair of giant claws or wings. That guy was immediately torn into two halves, and a rain of blood splashed down. This was a demon king at the peak of the true state. Actually, he wouldn't have been killed so easily. This was because, to demons, this kind of scolding was like a joke between humans, even if he thought about it. However, he was a demon king from the West, and didn't understand Bai Yunxin's temperament, as well as these demon kings near the Central Plains. This female demon was famous for not being able to joke around, and she was also very bold. How many demons in the world dared to go to Cloud Mountain to ask for the feather robe several times? Thus, when he saw that this guy didn't know what was good for him and spoke nonsense, he knew that he was in trouble, and quickly dodged to the side, afraid that he would be splashed with blood. The demon who scolded him died, and his lonely soul stood in the air for a while, as if he didn't understand how a demon at the peak of the true state could become a lonely wild ghost. However, before he could move again, Li Yunxin's green iron chain curled over and hooked his soul, keeping it somewhere unknown. This man and woman killed people, and the other hooked souls. However, there was no change in his expression, as if he had just killed a mosquito. This scene made the demons a little nervous, because they didn't pay attention before. Now that they saw Bai Yunxin, they looked in the direction where she came from, thus, they saw the evil lord. At this moment, the evil lord was watching everything coldly, not saying a word. At this time, the desire that they had been stimulated by the Tao Lord and Su Yusong had to cool down a little. Bai Yunxin clapped her hands and said, "This question is easy to answer. The cultivators of the Xianmen have cultivation methods that can be passed down, but we don't. They have cultivation methods, and there are many dynasties in the human world under their rule. Thus they can slowly pick out those with good qualifications, and with the help of a master, pills, and cultivation methods, their progress is naturally very fast. Unlike us demons, there are fewer of them, and they don't have cultivation methods. They still have to fight with each other, so of course their progress is very slow." Speaking of this, Li Yunxin smiled again. "Well said, Miss Bai. However, I still have to say that human cultivation needs to consider the efforts of individuals, and also the general trend of the world. Many demon kings have cultivated for thousands of years, but they can only reach the true state. But if a human cultivates for thousands of years, they can become the Grand Supreme. It's because there is one more. In this world, almost everywhere is rich in spiritual power. The spiritual power is rich and peaceful, so they can use that cultivation method to cultivate wherever they go. Naturally, it will be twice the result with half the effort." Speaking of this, he stopped meaningfully, but for a moment, the demon kings didn't speak, as if they hadn't recovered from the shock just now. Or maybe it was the first time they heard such a thing, and they were a little entranced. Bai Yunxin hurriedly said, "Then what does it have to do with what happened today?" Only then did Li Yunxin sigh softly. "I've said it before. The so-called Heaven and Earth Mother Plate can actually control the change of qi in the world, and change the flow of spiritual power. And now, I really can't control this thing. But fifth brothers in Atapen can." After saying this, he looked at the Tao Lord. "Tao Lord, the thing you showed everyone in the ancient relic was the Anatapen, right? You asked the demon kings to besiege Yunshan. But in fact, even if they get the Heaven and Earth Mother Plate, they can't control it completely. In the end, it still belongs to you." Chapter 556. First, there was Big Brother and Second Brother, who used the demons as sacrifices. Then there was Fifth Brother who used us to kill people and steal the treasure. Our family is really good brothers, each of us scheming. It's a pity that an honest person like me can't stand your sinister thoughts. So I don't want you to succeed." Hearing this, the demons looked at the Taoist Lord. However, the Taoist Lord spoke first. "That's right. I really have the brush. However, the Demon Kings present are not stupid enough to think that such a treasure can be shared. Which one of them doesn't want to fight? Do you think those weak people have to hand it over after getting it? We demons naturally do things for the strong. If someone gets the Heaven and Earth Mother plate from Li Yunqin, feel free to ask me for the truth returning brush. If they can really take it, I have nothing to say. As long as, he raised his eyebrows and looked at Li Yunqin sinisterly. As long as it's not in his hands. You all know this person. He was still a human a few months ago. Now he's also a human cultivator. He speaks and acts like a human. When he was flirting with Bai Yunqin just now, didn't he also look like a human? If such a person gets this treasure, aren't you afraid that he will slaughter all the demons in the world? This thing, for the demons in the world, can be in anyone's hands but not his. Li Yunqin laughed loudly like thunder. He seemed to be chatting with Bai Yunqin just now. At this time, his aura rose again, as if he was going to do something again. After laughing, his expression became serious, and he stared at the Taoist lord. Just not in my hands? For the demons in the world. Good. Tell me, what do you want to do after getting this treasure? The Taoist lord was stunned, and didn't answer him immediately. Li Yunqin continued to shout. I don't think you can answer. Even if you can, it will be some bullshit about ruling the demons and leading heroes to revitalize the demon race. But ask yourself, who is willing to be ruled and led? Who doesn't want to be the master of this world? The Tao Lord was a little annoyed and shouted. What great move do you have this time? Li Yunqin chuckled. Brilliant move. You Lord Tongtian should have thought of it too. But you are blinded by your own selfishness and cannot see it. Let me tell you now. Since the gold chi on the Mother Universe plate can move the chi in the world, then I'll destroy the Mother Universe plate and make the chi in the world chaotic. At that time, there will be very few places in the world where spiritual energy is soothing and peaceful. Everywhere will be full of chaotic turbulence. So what if those human cultivators have cultivation methods? The number of places where one could cultivate could be counted on one's fingers. And it would be impossible for one to achieve anything. At that time, there will be fewer and fewer cultivators in the world. Even if people get the Dharma access of cultivation, they won't be able to practice divine sense in ordinary places. They will even doubt whether this thing is useful or not, and whether the path of cultivation exists. After hundreds or thousands of years, I'm afraid that even the existence of cultivators will be forgotten and treated as a joke. At that time, it will be the real rise of our demon race. When he said these words, the demons were all shocked for a moment. They could imagine that they could become the demon king of a region and obtain supreme magic treasures. But all of these were things that were done in this world. However, what Li Yunqin said now was actually going to change this world itself. How could ordinary people think of such an arrogant idea? After a while, a smarter demon king finally asked. According to what you said, if the world is in chaos, won't it be difficult for us demons to use the spiritual power between heaven and earth? Li Yunqin didn't look at him. He just snorted coldly. Use. Now that you don't have cultivation methods, do you think you can use it? If the spiritual power in the world is in chaos, we demon race will only lose shackles and oppression, but we will gain the whole world. At this time, the Lord Taoist finally cried out, Li Yunqin, you are really vicious. You can't keep this treasure, but you want others to not be able to take it. Li Yunqin smiled coldly. Exactly. If you and the Lord Tongtian didn't push me too hard, I really couldn't think of such a good idea in a short time. All the demons in the world should thank you. Think it through. The Mother and Earth plate is a treasure that can control the world. The Lord Taoist gritted his teeth and said, if you really dare to destroy it. Li Yunqin's face turned cold, and he spat out a few words. Then you see, there is nothing I don't dare to do. You like this treasure? Then watch carefully. As soon as he said this, his figure suddenly became blurred and flashed. It was as if a strong wind suddenly rose in the high sky and was about to blow him away. But how could his incarnation condensed by the chi of heaven and earth be blown away by any wind? At the same time, some changes suddenly happened in the distant cloud mountain. The demons on the ground were the first to notice this change. They didn't fly up into the sky, so they could see the lower half of the huge cloud mountain. The lower half was shrouded in the night, and was originally a patch of darkness. But at the same time that Li Yunxin's incarnation flashed, some light spots began to appear in the deep darkness. At first there was one, then two, then three, four, dozens, hundreds of them. It was as if there were many sparks sputtering from the cloud mountain, and the cloud mountain itself also became slightly bright. It was as if there was a fire hidden under it. But the sparks seen from such a long distance couldn't be sparks. In fact, they were the external exits of the various internal passages, hidden under the thick stone walls of the cloud mountain. There was a terrible flame and heat erupting from the inside of the cloud mountain. In the previous battle, many demons did have the idea of destroying the cloud mountain. But just like the bandits in the Jianghu, who had the idea of killing their way into the throne room and becoming the emperor's head, this kind of thing could only be thought about. No one could have imagined that today, at this moment, they would really see such a scene. The entire ground began to tremble. A huge amount of soil and rocks peeled off the surface of the cloud mountain and poured down, forming a wide, heavy, and huge waterfall. The surface of the cloud mountain seemed to be covered by a curtain, but soon, fire slowly erupted from under the curtain. After a few more breaths of time, all the demon kings would be able to hear rumbling that shook the heavens and the earth, and the enormous sound of Cloud Mountain's outer shell changing shape, that seemed to be emitted by the sorrowful wails of Cloud Mountain. Did Li Yunxin really destroy the universe motherboard in Cloud Mountain? How did he do it? Seeing this scene, the Dao monarch's robe immediately fluttered, and his eyes emitted a terrifying red glow. Li Yunxian. But at this time, the illusion of Li Yunxin had become extremely blurry. Facing the Dao monarch's rage, he could only leave a few short sentences. I understand, I understand. The illusion laughed and said, You've planned for so many years, but I destroyed it right in front of you. Won't you go mad with anger? Ha 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 ha. The illusion laughed wildly as it dissipated, and the monster kings quickly recovered from the extreme shock. Because the huge cloud mountain in the distance also moved, it seemed that the terrible explosion had alarmed something inside, a restriction. The huge object began to rise shakily, trying to leave the ground. It was going to return to the sky 6 days in advance. And at the same time, they clearly felt that the environment around them began to undergo some indescribable changes. It was as if they had come from a pool of calm spring water in front of them. But now this pool of spring water began to shake, and it began to swirl and flow in the pool. Some unpleasant things appeared, and everyone in the pool began to sway. But it was not their bodies that were shaking but their souls. The souls were inextricably linked to the external qi dynamic. This meant that Li Yunxin had indeed done what he said. Since he could not control the heaven and earth mother plate, he destroyed it. The qi dynamic between heaven and earth began to change, becoming chaotic and disorderly. This change was extremely difficult for ordinary people to notice. Perhaps they would only find that some domestic animals had become restless and uneasy, but that was probably all, and there would not be much impact. But for some people, cultivators, for a long time to come, this world would no longer be able to cultivate everywhere. Without rare and peaceful places with abundant spiritual power, ordinary people like Lu Laodao in the past would not be able to use any magical power. If there was such a word in this world, it should be, the end of Dharma had begun. Once Li Yunxin's illusion disappeared, Lord Daoist finally went mad. Grand and brilliant flames suddenly bloomed around him, and his whole body turned into a thin line that went straight in the direction of the cloud mountain. And he let out a terrible howl in the deep night. Li Yunxin, I want you dead. He destroyed the cloud mountain, and he is coming out. Kill him for me now. If you capture him alive, I will grant you the magical power of the Crimson Cloud Palace. He went mad, but there was another person who also went mad. It was Su Yusong, who had taken over the body of the Profound Realm cultivator. He stared straight at the cloud mountain that was spitting flames but still staggered into the sky, and suddenly let out a cry that sounded like the cry of a ghost. Cloud Mountain! Cloud Mountain! This Lord's Cloud Mountain! This Lord's world! This lord's. Ah! He roared at the sky, and his cry traveled hundreds of miles. You harmed my wife, my daughter, my cloud mountain, my Daotong, and my world. Aha! I will not live under the same sky as you. This crazy Freemason wandering soul, former saint, and current profound realm Taoist, also turned into a ray of light, and went straight for the cloud mountain. Lord Taoist, and he both seemed to have a profound realm cultivation base. Now that he had really unleashed his killing intent, the momentum was extremely shocking. Even Bai Yunxin, who was not afraid of anything, was slightly stunned. In this moment, the two of them had already flown dozens of miles away. The demon kings, on the other hand, were still in a daze, not knowing what to do for a moment. They had heard what Li Yunxin had said before. Although they did not really understand, they knew that it made sense. Now they saw him accomplish such a feat. He had really destroyed the nest of the Taoist priests and swordsmen. Of course, they would have some, even if only a little, feelings of we are too inferior to catch up in their hearts. Therefore, for a moment they looked at each other speechless. Chapter 557. Eventually someone said, "Let's go and take a look." Li Yunxin did something great. But that sage also said that there are many treasures in Cloud Mountain. There are many treasures in the Cloud Mountain. He must have brought them out. Hearing this, Bai Yunxin glared at the group of demons. Who is talking? Come out. That demon immediately stopped talking, but his words seemed to have opened a magic box. The group of demons were so proud of themselves and wanted to get the treasures. In the end, the treasures were destroyed before they could finish their apprenticeship. Although they were not like the Taoist lord who had plotted for so many years, they were still filled with regret and unwillingness. At this moment, their emotions were stirred up by Li Yunxin's words. Although they admired Li Yunxin for doing such a good thing, but they were demons after all. So they all said, "You just want to protect your lover. Do you want to tie our hands and feet? The world is so big. It's none of your business if we go and take a look elsewhere. Let's go together." After saying that, the group of demons with high cultivation bases in the sky swarmed toward the cloud mountain noisily. Those on the ground with low cultivation levels also followed them to watch the show, except for the hundreds of demon kings under the evil lord's command. Very soon, thousands of demons appeared on the wasteland again. They gathered into a sea of people, as if they were going to attack Cloud Mountain again. Although Bai Yunxin was shrewd, there was nothing she could do in such a situation. She couldn't possibly fight against so many fiendish demons by herself. He immediately rushed back to the ground and called out, "Lord!" When she rushed up to the sky, the evil lord was still seriously injured. The demon power in his body was weak. She told Bai Yunxin that she didn't have long to live. She was not lying. Her spirit was incomplete, and she didn't have a large amount of demon power to repair it. Naturally, it was hard for her to live. But when Bai Yunxin returned to her side, she realized that the evil lord was completely different from before. Her complexion looked healthy and full of energy. It was as if she had returned to her peak state in the blink of an eye. This surprised the female demon. "Lord, you." The evil lord waved his hand lightly. Her aura and confidence returned to her. However, Bai Yunxin could still sense that there was a trace of suspicion lingering on her face. The evil lord seemed to have something heavy on his mind at the moment. She turned around on the hill she was standing on and said to the demon kings, "Since something has happened at Cloud Mountain, you guys should follow and take a look. However, you are not allowed to participate in it. You can only watch from the side." The demons hesitated and did not accept the order immediately. Previously, when the evil lord killed the skeletons, his aura was terrifying. But then, Dragon the Fifth came and talked nonsense. And there were 3 dragon sun fighting in the sky, but she didn't make a move. These scenes made some demons suspicious. Forefather Tua Tua, who had attained the Tao on the wooden bench, smiled and said, "Does Lord really want us to do this? We are even more worried that Jun Shang was injured in the previous battle. Now that the situation is dangerous, once we go, who will protect Jun Shang?" After saying this, the demons fell silent and stared at the evil lord in the dark. If it were a Taoist priest or a swordsman, they would have shivered at the sight of this. Just a moment ago, these demons and devils were fighting with the skeletons right under the evil lord's nose, as if they were loyal and devoted soldiers. However, now, once they suspected that the evil lord was injured, they would look at her like this. They were like a pack of hungry wolves staring at a delicious prey. However, the evil lord did not seem to be surprised. This kind of scene was normal for demons. Although they had achieved success in their cultivation, learned human language, and wore human clothes, they were still in between human and beast. They had the intelligence of humans, but not the rationality of humans. Therefore, the part of them that was called animal nature became more cunning and dangerous. Even if the person who was high and mighty became weak, they would want to tear him apart and swallow him to gain some benefits. This was also the reason why Qinjun and Hatred stayed in the mountains alone, after they were seriously injured by the skeleton, instead of gathering their remaining subordinates. It was because it would be more dangerous. Things were not the same as before. Now some vague but real rules had been broken. The demons did not have to hide anymore, and Long Sun could be killed. For humans, it was the end of the world, but for demons, it was the beginning of a new life. The Fiend Lord smiled. There was a hint of coldness in his smile. "Do you want to make trouble?" She said this straightforwardly. She raised her hand and pointed at the demons. A beam of golden light shot out from her fingertip and pierced between Patriarch Tuatuo's eyebrows. "Do you think there is no limit to my tolerance for you?" The golden light flashed and disappeared. It was so short that it looked like an illusion. However, when the demons looked at where Patriarch Tuatua was standing, they all kept quiet out of fear. After a moment or two of silence, they all shouted, "You are right! You are right! It is time to go. Let's go." Not long after, they all left. There was only a square-headed elm stool in the room. No one paid attention to the stool. When the demons left, the evil lord took a step into the void. Then, she flew into the sky and flew away. Her steps were calm, but her speed was fast. It was as if she was not the one walking, but the ground was moving backward. Bai Yunqin was also enveloped by her escape art. She knew that the evil lord had fully recovered his power. If the Heaven and Earth Mother plate that Old Five mentioned is true, it is indeed very powerful. The evil lord said in a low voice as he walked, "My demon power has been depleted, but just now Li Yunqin controlled the earth qi to replenish my power. It is hard to imagine." He sighed. "Since he has such an incredible skill, I think Zijuan will not have a good ending. I'm afraid she has been subdued by him." Bai Yunqin said worriedly, "My lord, he..." The evil lord waved his hand. "I don't care about him and Zijuan anymore. I am not one of those idiots. I know a little. Although I was injured because of him, it was also very courageous of him to dare to save me. But such a treasure, I didn't expect him to destroy it. I also didn't expect him to kill Lord Tongtian. Sigh, I didn't expect." She ran away quickly. In the time it took for her to sigh, she had already reached the plains at the foot of the mountain. She was already dozens of miles away from the cliff. He stopped in his tracks and glanced at the ground. The ground was full of corpses, blood and broken armors. Bai Yunqin frowned when she saw the scene, but the evil lord looked at it carefully. After a while she waved her hand. An object jumped up from the ground and landed in her hand. Bai Yunqin looked at it and realized that it was very familiar. She thought again and realized that it should have belonged to Li Yunqin. It was a white folding fan made of bamboo. The evil lord frowned slightly. He shook his hand and the folding fan opened. The white fan was full of red dots. If one didn't look carefully, they would think that it was a red cloud. "I didn't expect him to hand over the summer palace to me." She looked at it for a long time, but couldn't find anything strange. She only knew that the paper used for the fan was ordinary Dharma paper. However, the red dots on it hid something else. Maybe it was a unique mystery of the art of painting. She didn't waste any more effort, and put the folding fan into her sleeve. After a moment of silence, she looked at her daughter and asked, "Exiner, do you really like him?" The evil lord could tell that if his daughter liked Li Yunqin 30% in the past, it had become 70% now. Whether it was a mortal or a demon, which girl didn't like their sweetheart's majestic and energetic look? What Li Yunqin had done just now, could no longer be described with the words, awe-inspiring. Bai Yunqin was stunned. She stared at the evil lord's sleeve worriedly. The evil lord sighed. I know your feelings. When you were in the sky, before Li Yunqin destroyed the heaven and earth mother plate, you injected your demonic power into my body. Then, you told me that the demons would go to Cloud Mountain, and asked me to come here to get his folding fan. In fact, this is his summer palace. The magic weapon he used to tie up the second brother, and the second brother's dragon soul are all in here. When the evil lord said this, he turned to look at the direction of Cloud Mountain. The explosion inside Cloud Mountain seemed to be still going on. However, it was also rising up stubbornly and shakily. She didn't know how terrible the situation inside was. She could only see that there were streams of fire flowing out from all the exits and hanging in midair. This made the whole Cloud Mountain look like a giant jellyfish. The top half was a solemn, dark and solid body. The bottom half was made of many shining tentacles made of flames that kept growing longer. From such a distance, it seemed to be rising very slowly. However, its speed should be extremely fast. In just a short time, it was already 2 miles above the ground. However, because its body was too big, it looked like it was still sticking to the ground. She retracted her gaze and looked at Bai Yunqin. I underestimated him. I didn't expect him to be so reckless and bold. Such a person, Xian heir, is extremely dangerous. Although his cultivation level is low now, after what happened today, I can't help but feel afraid if I have to be his enemy. You must think it through. Bai Yunqin heaved a sigh of relief. However, she only raised her eyebrows. My lord, is he that scary? He just destroyed a treasure. If he can't get it, no one else can. This is his style. I know it. The evil lord let out a sigh. It was late autumn night. Her breath turned into white fog. The weather was getting colder. Her face was slightly blurred because of the fog. I'm not afraid of this. I'm afraid of his ruthlessness. Demons and cannibals are ruthless when they kill people. He doesn't eat people or kill people randomly. But today I know, his heart is the most ruthless. The evil lord's expression was solemn. He used to be a human. He has only been a demon for a few months. But what he did today, he cut off the fate of the cultivation of the human Tao. The viciousness of this matter can't be described with words. Zither Lady and Lord Tongtian sent many demons to their deaths in order to make the demons in the world obedient to them, so that they could dominate the world. When did they ever think of cutting off the path of survival for the demon race? But Li Yunqin did. Not only did he do it, but he also did it. Not only did he do it, he didn't feel guilty at all. Once such a person becomes hostile, I'm afraid no one is more terrifying than him in the world. Bai Yunqin listened to what she said, and thought for a while with a frown. But she still blinked her eyes. Is this considered terrifying? The evil lord sighed in her heart again. Her daughter had traveled the world, and thought that she had seen a lot of things. But there were some things that she couldn't see just by walking around the human world. She had to be lucky, be in the torrent of history, or at a turning point to see it. She didn't have that kind of experience. Naturally, she didn't realize that the current Li Yunqin, how terrifying he was. But how could she not have a trace of luck in her heart? At this moment, the safest way was to kill him. However, the evil lord dismissed the thought as soon as it appeared in his mind. Based on Li Yunqin's methods just now, this person did things step by step, and was extremely scheming. Since he saved her life, it meant that he had full confidence that she wouldn't harm him. But the evil lord didn't think of this confidence, so she couldn't figure it out. But at least she knew that Li Yunqin wasn't the kind of person who would trust anyone easily. Now that he asked her to come and get this folding fan, although he said that it was his temporary imperial residence, and that he was afraid that someone would take it away, and asked her to keep it, she was sure that it wasn't real. Maybe it was one of his tests. It was always the evil lord who tested others. But now it was this guy who did it. But she didn't feel insulted or offended. Not to mention the realm. Li Yunqin had the ability to do so. So she said, fine. You have to grow up. Now go over there and take a look. After saying that, the mother and daughter waved their sleeves, and went in the direction of Cloud Mountain. But at this moment near Cloud Mountain, it had become a sea of fire. The fire that fell from Cloud Mountain finally fell to the ground, even burning the soil and rocks. The fire was extremely high, at least 100 feet high. It was like a primitive forest made of fire, emitting shocking heat. Originally, the demons were shocked by Li Yunxin's methods. Only the Lord Taoist and Su Yusong were looking for Li Yunxin everywhere to seek revenge. But after they rushed here and cursed, Li Yunxin didn't show up. It seemed that he was afraid. So many demons who were hesitant and planned to wait and see also became bold. For the supernatural Taoist skills promised by the Lord Taoist and the mysterious treasures mentioned by Su Yusong, they also began to search for traces of Li Yunxin. Just like that, above the vast sea of fire, it was as bright as day. And more than a dozen profound realm demons, more than 100 true realm demons, and even more demons whose cultivation level was above the transcendent realm, cast a dragnet, determined to find Li Yunxin. But now, the qi between heaven and earth was already chaotic. There were many supernatural powers that could be used easily in the past, but now it became very difficult. Maybe in the future, when they gradually became familiar with such an environment, they would be able to use it easily again. But at least at this time, it was extremely difficult for the demons to lock onto another person through the changes in qi like before. Therefore, these supernatural beings were now like mortals. Looking and searching with their eyes could be said to be extremely difficult. The Lord Taoist was already extremely angry after searching for 15 minutes, but still couldn't find him. He jumped on the sea of fire, completely losing the bearing of a master, and shouted loudly, "Li Yunxin, you cowardly rat, you can escape today, but can you escape forever?" Previously, you were pretending in front of the heroes of the world, but now you're hiding. This is all you can do. I'm afraid that in the future, you will not be tolerated by humans, nor will you be tolerated by demons. I know that you're used to living in hiding in the past. I'm afraid that you still don't know what it means to obey the will of heaven and win the hearts of people, and you don't know how to save your life in this chaotic world. However, a voice suddenly interrupted him. Chapter 558. It should be Li Yunxin's voice, but it sounded indistinct. No one knew where it came from. As soon as the voice came out, the demons who were searching for him fell silent. They wanted to know where the true body was. The Taoist lord was stunned at first, but then he grinned. Good. If you dare to show yourself, But he seemed to have run into some kind of evil star today. Before he could finish his sentence, it was snatched away by someone else. Su Yusong, who had gone mad, flew around the sea of fire like a headless fly, shouting, "Come out! I'm going to kill you. You will die in my hands today." The Taoist lord looked at him coldly and shouted, "This kid and I have a deep grudge. I won't be satisfied if I don't kill him with my own hands. But he has caused such a disaster. Since you used to be the Cloud Mountain Saint, I will allow you to kill this bastard with me today. But none of you are allowed to do anything." He raised his hand and pointed at the demon kings in the field, saying sternly, "This battle is a personal grudge. I will make this kid Li Yunxin accept his death. After he dies, you can take all his treasures. But if anyone dares to cause trouble, we will attack them together." As soon as he said this, he heard Li Yunxin laugh again. At this time, the demons could vaguely tell that the voice seemed to be coming from the ground. Ha, good. Accept your personal grudge. If your *T were said by the people of Jianghu in the secular world, it would be, "Let's not talk about Jianghu morality with this unorthodox demon. Let's fight together. I see that you like to talk ostentatiously and look pompous. You think you are also an impetuous fool. But you do know to find yourself a mysterious realm helper first, in case you fail in my hands. Then you said some *T to tell them not to attack. But in fact, you asked them to stop others from helping me. Ha. A genuine hypocrite like you is also an anomaly among the demons." Interesting. The Taoist lord was not angry. He only smiled coldly. As he spoke, he carefully lowered his head to look for Li Yunxin's figure. "Don't try to talk big. You're just at the peak of the true state, and you dare to talk big. It would be great if you were an ordinary demon. With such a majestic demonic power, I'm afraid you would have advanced into a profound realm. But I do know that you also cultivate some painting technique. If you suddenly reach such a profound state, I'm afraid you don't have to cultivate the painting Tao anymore, and all sorts of tribulations will come. Besides, at this point, he suddenly lowered his voice as if he did not want the other demons to hear him. Previously, I had a way to tell that the evil lord was severely injured. Now I naturally have a way to know. Not long ago, you actually infused most of the demonic power from the demon souls on the battlefield into her body to heal her. Although I don't know what's going on between the two of you, I can make some guesses about your current realm. If you want to call her to save you, you're just wasting your time. Within 10 breaths, I'll destroy your soul. When he said the last few words, his voice gradually became louder. After saying all this, the surrounding demon kings should have applauded, made his aura even stronger, and made Li Yunqin even more terrified. But soon, he realized that the surroundings were strangely quiet. It was as if the demon kings had seen something extraordinary, and so they were speechless for a long time. The Taoist lord's heart tightened, and his gaze drifted around. He saw that the demon kings were all staring behind him. Thus, he suddenly felt a sense of danger in his heart. He turned around and splashed out a stream of flame, shouting, "What a thief! How dare you sneak attack me?" His reaction was extremely fast, and his technique was also very clever. At such a chaotic moment, he could use such a powerful supernatural power in the blink of an eye, sealing off every possible angle of attack from the sneak attacker. It was enough to show his ability, but this attack missed. When Su Yusong, who was extremely far away, heard the noise and rushed over, the Taoist lord finally turned around and saw what was behind him. Actually, no one sneak attacked him. Li Yunqin was standing on the ground. If not for the aura on his body and hatred's description of his appearance, it would be difficult for the Taoist lord to connect him to the peak of the true state dragon sun, who was hiding everywhere in a sorry state. Because he was far too impressive and pompous. He wore a 9 swallowing 8 golden leaves dragon scale armor, and each armor leaf emitted a blurry golden light. This made his body look like it was shrouded in a ball of golden mist. He wore a flaming lion purple gold crown on his head. The mighty divine beast's eyes were inlaid with some kind of rubies that were infused with dense spiritual energy. It was not angry, but it was powerful. Ordinary people, cultivators with lower cultivation bases, and fiendish demons would be frightened, and their minds would be in a trance when this ferocious beast's gaze swept past them. It was obvious that it was a treasure that could confuse people. He wore a pair of 6-petal, 6-edged beast claw boots. The tips of the boots shone with a cold light, and there were light blades that were flickering, as if they were about to shoot out an unparalleled spiritual energy aura. There was a 6-foot golden goose feather saber on his waist. There was no sheath on the saber. There were no decorations on the blade. However, he felt a sharp pain in his eyes when he looked at it. It was as if the extremely sharp and powerful aura on the saber was about to slash his body from hundreds of feet away. However, under this was a tight white robe. This made him look mighty and majestic, but it did not reduce his handsome and elegant aura. The two styles were strangely unified. It was likely that there wouldn't be such a beautiful and mighty general in the world. Li Yunqin was now standing on the ground. The flames within 100 feet of him were forced back and surrounded him. However, the flames and heat made him look even more imposing. In fact, what the demon kings saw just now was the terrifying 9th dragon sun slowly parted the sea of fire and appeared on the ground while the Taoist lord and Su Yusong were still running around like headless flies. Then he observed the Taoist lord coldly. It was only when he thought that he had been ambushed and casually attacked in panic that he sneered. "There's no need for a sneak attack to deal with someone like you." His calm aura, which was like a mountain, made the Taoist lord panic even more when he attacked just now. However, it was not his aura that caused the monster kings to hold their breaths when he appeared. It was, as soon as he appeared, he released his pressure and aura in an extremely ostentatious manner. Those with low cultivation might not be able to see it, But how could these demon kings not know that the one who had such an aura was not the peak of the true state, as the Taoist Lord had said, but at least the mysterious realm of Shi? The reason why the demon kings still dared to come now was because they all knew that Long Jiao was only in the true state. If it was by chance, he would at most reach the peak of the true state. One had to know that the cultivation method was different from the demons. If the foundation was not stable, and the advancement was too fast, there would be trouble. Going from the true state to the profound state was a difficult threshold. Didn't the Taoist Lord see so many Taoist sect cultivators talking about Taoist heart, tribulation transcendence, and so on, who knew that Long Jiao's advancement was so terrifying? And now he had become a super big demon in the profound state. Did he no longer cultivate that cultivation method, and didn't care about emotionless or tribulation transcendence? There were only a dozen or so people in the profound state among the group of demons, encountering this demon of the demons, who was also in the profound state, and also had Taoist spells and supernatural powers. Who would be tired of living and want to pounce on him? The Taoist Lord had said something like, "Don't make a move, and have a fair fight." Seeing the current Li Yunxin, the demons were afraid that even if the Taoist Lord forced them to make a move, they wouldn't be willing to. The Taoist Lord was stunned when he saw him, and suddenly raised his eyebrows. "You?" He had a lot of doubts in his heart. He wanted to take a closer look at him, to find any abnormalities or flaws. But at this time, this Li Yunxin didn't say anything more. He paused on the ground, and a flame lotus appeared under his feet, lifting him up into the air. Then he patted his waist, pulled out the goose feather saber that shone with cold light, and shouted, "Since you want to see me so much, let's see what you're made of." As soon as he said this, there was only a ball of golden light where he stood. All the flames within a radius of dozens of feet had turned into green ghost fire, as if a world independent of this world had been formed. The goose feather saber in his hand burst out with hundreds of millions of saber lights, and in an instant, the green ghost fire was completely suppressed. It was unknown whether it was thousands or tens of thousands of sounds of metal colliding. The Taoist Lord and Su Yusong were trapped in it at the same time, and in the blink of an eye, they had suffered countless abnormally fierce slashes. The momentum of this attack was so great that all the demon kings gasped. The people in the profound sect were used to seeing gorgeous Taoist spells, but the demon kings hadn't seen many, not to mention what Li Yunxin used. The demon power was extremely strong, fierce and brave, as if it had reached the peak of the Shi profound state. The supernatural power was extremely exquisite, and the changes contained in it were not something that the supernatural power of demons could evolve. It had to be mixed with the profound sect's Taoist spells and swordsmanship, so that the Taoist Lord and Su Yusong couldn't break it for a while, and suffered thousands of slashes. This was using the profound sect's supernatural power. He used this kind of means that was regarded as a life-saving skill by these demon kings. This Long Jiao was really scary. However, the Taoist Lord was also a dragon's, a great demon of the Shi profound state. The strength of his body was probably even greater than that of Li Yunxin. Although Su Yusong was a human cultivator, he used to be a saint of the profound sect. Even if he had less experience than the original, he could control the body of a profound realm Taoist with the cultivation of half a saint, and he didn't fall into a disadvantage for a while. These two took the first blow from Li Yunxin, but they were not seriously injured. After a storm of blows, the Taoist Lord rushed out first, wrapped in a thick ball of fire. The moment he rushed out, the ghostly green space was broken. Light and fire returned to the world, and Su Yusong jumped out of the fire like a drowning man coming to the surface of the water. But he looked up to the sky and laughed. "Ha ha ha ha, just as a Li Yunxin, you little boy stole my treasure, but you don't know the spell, and you can't use the power of this treasure. What's the difference between grabbing a butcher's knife and slashing randomly? Now you see my real Taoist magic." He hated Li Yunxin more than the Taoist Lord, and his mind was crazy. So now he didn't know what fear was. He dared to pounce on Li Yunxin with his bare hands, wearing only a shabby Taoist robe. Lightning flashed between his palms, And in a moment, a terrible electric snake was drawn from the thick clouds in the sky, and it went straight to Li Yunxin. "Come and have a taste of my thunder magic. Let's see if I can kill you, dragons." Su Yusong attacked fiercely, but the Taoist lord didn't stop him. He could see that although Li Yunxin was in the mysterious realm of Shi, the first level of the mysterious realm, he hadn't consolidated his realm yet, and many of his techniques were clumsy. Once he entered the mysterious realm, his divine abilities were mostly related to the rules of heaven and earth, and the origin of the great Tao. Demon power could be increased, but these things that required time and experience couldn't be rushed. At this moment, Su Yusong was in front, and he used 5-9 Heaven's Thunderfire from the back, mixing into Su Yusong's thunder magic. In the end, this former saint was a madman. He might as well let him take the lead and probe Li Yunxin's real situation. But Li Yunxin seemed to be relying on his divine armor, and was afraid of losing his momentum in front of the demons, causing them to attack him, so he laughed wildly. "Come on then, take this move of mine too." Seeing the terrible electric snake coming down from the sky, the demons were so frightened that they retreated dozens of feet. But Li Yunxin's body shook, and he slashed with his blade again. He only slashed once, but in an instant, the blade light slashed out thousands of times. The wild thunder and the blade energy burst out at the same time, and the golden figure of the 9th dragon sun was instantly engulfed in the dazzling electric light. But the blade energy he forced out also hit Su Yusong's body. A series of earth-shattering explosions rang out as the three figures crossed paths with each other. When the light dissipated, Li Yunxin was still standing with his head held high, his chest out, and his momentum was like a rainbow. But the goose feather blade in his hand had become sawtooth, and it seemed to be slightly damaged. The light of the brilliant golden armor on his body was also slightly dimmed, and there were even 2 burn marks on his shoulder, with faint green smoke rising. It was unknown whether it was Su Yusong's thunder magic that made the difference, or the Taoist Lord's 9 Heavens Thunderfire that made a miraculous effect. But Su Yusong's appearance was worse. His body was not as strong as the Taoist Lord and Li Yunxin. Just now, he had taken all of Dragon Sun's blade energy, and now his body was covered with finger-wide wounds. He looked like a sack riddled with holes. But he was a wandering soul, and he actually could not hold on. He laughed even more crazily. Stupid thing, the golden goose feather blade, and the 9 refined dragon scale armor. Although they are not the best treasures among the treasures of Cloud Mountain, if they know the incantation, I'm afraid they will kill me in one move. Ha ha ha. Did you bring them out because they are beautiful? They look good, but they are useless. How long can you hold on? As soon as he finished speaking, his figure suddenly faded, and his voice also became blurred. I will teach you some mysterious realm magical powers. This time, the Taoist Lord did not follow, and Fan took a step back. Among the crowd of demons, the mysterious realm demon king's expression also became serious, and he even flew dozens of feet away, because these demons with profound cultivation knew that Su Yusong was now using an extremely terrifying ability. Stepping into the mysterious realm, one could use the rules of heaven and earth to fight against enemies. But it was already very difficult to touch the rules of heaven and earth, let alone use them. Those who cultivated to this realm mostly used this method as a trump card, and would not use it unless it was a critical moment, if they were lucky enough to comprehend it. The method that Su Yusong was using now was of this type. There was no longer any light that could reach the outside world. Naturally, there was nothing for the demons to see. An extremely terrifying and strange aura spread through the entire area. But this aura was inexplicably familiar to every demon. But among them, they were either slow-witted or inexperienced. If there was someone who was good at both, such as Li Yunxin, who saw this scene, they might think of demonic seed. After another 3 breaths of time, the darkness suddenly dispersed. The light quickly squeezed in and expanded. All the demons saw what happened. It was a battle that was carried out using such a strange method. There wasn't any dazzling light or sound when it was going on. Now that it was over, The scene that they saw could be said to be lackluster. The two of them were still standing. In the void, the saber in Li Yunxin's hand was still the saber, and the armor was still the armor, and Su Yusong's appearance was still full of holes. But his face was trembling very quickly, as if it was the night wind that made his face tremble. But in fact, it was indeed the night wind that made his face tremble. After 2 breaths of time, his body suddenly deflated. The overflowing spiritual power escaped from every wound, and his body and face were quickly distorted. But the airflow caused by this also brought out his last few words. I'm not reconciled. You should know that this Li Yunxin, is just relying on his armor. I've already broken it. Finally, Su Yusong's voice turned into a pure exhalation. As if the last breath of a playful child was squeezed out of a skin bag. A thin and tattered layer of human skin fluttered to the ground. There was nothing inside. No one knew whether it was because his xianqi was not finished, or because it was broken by Li Yunxin. This peak profound realm cultivator actually died just like that. Even his soul was gone. All the demons were silent for a moment, and all eyes were focused on Li Yunxin. But before, they were too shocked to check. Now that they looked carefully, they felt that his breath had become weak and disordered. It was as if a bunch of messy things had been stuffed into his meridians, making it impossible for him to circulate them smoothly no matter how hard he tried. Su Yusong's attack just now had indeed seriously injured him. A temporarily borrowed Profound Realm body was able to hurt Profound Realm Dragon Sun, who was wearing a full body of precious armor, to such a state with his bare hands. It could be considered shocking. Seeing Li Yunxin like this, the Lord Taoist laughed. Wonderful. It's rare to see such a person who can be seen as an enemy by both the demons and the profound sect. This old thing looks crazy, but he's actually quite useful. Ninth brother, oh ninth brother. Your divine weapon is sharp, and your precious armor is strong. But if I break them, what else can you rely on? Eat my ninth heaven thunderfire. Although he said it lightly, his attacks were fast and ruthless. The guy who called himself the Cloud Mountain Sage used the magical power of the rules of heaven and earth, but still failed to kill Li Yunxin, who had just entered the Shi Profound Realm. Instead, he was defeated and died. It could be seen that he did have some capital to be arrogant. If he was an ordinary dragon son or a demon, maybe he could really escape, but hit! Following the Lord Taoist's angry shout, the rolling thunder from the sky split into countless branches above Li Yunxin's head, trapping him like a huge tree cage. Li Yunxin's movements were a little slow now. He was about to break out of the encirclement, but the Lord Taoist made a series of hand seals and shouted loudly, "Have a taste of the supreme great Tao that I've comprehended after guarding the Crimson Firmament Palace for 2,000 years." As soon as he made a hand seal, his fingertips immediately emitted a brilliant light. This appearance and momentum were actually somewhat similar to the magical powers used by the high-level cultivators of Daotong and Kenzo. But what surprised the demons even more was that it was not just similar. Tribulation wind and thunder, poisonous fire and thunderbolts, bone-corroding nether air, and some other techniques that they couldn't name, but could tell were all contained in this light. Among the demons, a few had fought with the skeleton before. Therefore, they could tell at a glance, wasn't this clearly the skeleton's technique? It knew all the Daotong and Kenzo spells, and it used them all at once. This terrible power passed through the electric cage formed by the ninth heaven thunderfire and hit Li Yunxin's body. The mystic light and the lightning intersected, and the ninth dragon sun, who had been slowed down by Su Yusong's fierce attack, was completely taken advantage of. Golden blood splattered everywhere. The demons only knew that the Lord Taoist of the Crimson Firmament Palace had been comprehending some great Tao that demons could cultivate. Only now, when they saw him use it with their own eyes, did they realize that he seemed to have really comprehended it. Compared to those demons who only fought with brute force, and always fought with their flesh and blood, his technique was so brilliant that it was terrifying. If a person had the strong body of a demon, could easily obtain demonic power, and had the magical powers cultivated by the Taoist, where in the world couldn't he go? Wasn't this the reason why Li Yunxin, who was fighting with the Lord Taoist now, could be so powerful. The demons were so shocked, but when they looked at Li Yunxin again, they saw that he was already above the sea of fire. He had been blasted hundreds of feet away by the Lord Taoist's all-out attack just now before he stopped. The goose feather saber in his hand, which had previously made the demons extremely envious, was now densely covered in cracks like a spider's web. Although the shape of the saber was still there, it must have been seriously injured. If there was a skilled craftsman who carefully refined it over time, it might be able to regain its former glory. But now, it was probably going to be destroyed together with Li Yunxin. The bright purple gold armor on his body had also dimmed. There was a large crack on the left side of his chest, and there were also small cracks on his waist. There was a faint dark gold flash in the cracks. It should be his dragon blood. The treasures left behind by the saints of the Taoist sect were nothing else. They were treasures created by experts of the Grand Supreme Realm, with the experience gained from many years of cultivation, and the precious materials collected by countless disciples from all over the world. To these existences of the profound realm, even if there were no incantations and they could not unleash its full power, it was still a terrifyingly powerful treasure. However, the Lord Taoist's attack had almost destroyed the treasures left behind by the saints on Li Yunxin's body. It could be seen how powerful it was. If Li Yunxin did not have these treasures to protect himself, he would probably have lost half his life. The Lord Taoist was obviously very satisfied with the outcome of the battle. The all-out attack just now seemed to have consumed a lot of his primordial energy. Therefore, he did not pursue the victory. Instead, he quietly adjusted his breathing for a while and looked at Li Yunxin with a calm attitude, as if victory was in his grasp. Your reliance has now been destroyed by the great Tao that I have comprehended. Next, it's time for you to use your true strength to end this fair and square with me. After saying that, he took a deep breath and took a step forward in the void. Because of this step, the sleeves of his robe fluttered even though there was no wind, looking intimidating. With his remaining strength, it was enough to kill Li Yunxin, who had been completely destroyed. And now, he wanted to make this final, all-out attack even more beautiful. Today 2 dragon sons would die. This was a big day worth remembering. However, Li Yunxin coughed and spat out a mouthful of golden blood. He waved his hand. Wait a moment. He said this casually. It was as if the two of them were sparring. However, the painful and weak expression and the extremely chaotic aura were not fake. Perhaps this madman also knew that he had come to the end, so he wanted to fight a more beautiful battle. The Lord Taoist hated those who were arrogant, but he could do nothing about them. However, for someone who was already in the palm of his hand and could be killed at any time, he was patient. He sneered. What? What else do you have to say? Chapter 560. Li Yunxin didn't say anything. Instead, he turned his head and looked at the group of demons. He saw a few demon kings in the true realm staring at the goose feather saber in his hand. These demon monarchs all had slender limbs and thin physiques. Although he didn't know what it was, this treasure saber must be very suitable for them. His current plan was to wait for Li Yunxin's death and see if he could snatch a few fragments. If he refined it into a short weapon, it would be a treasure that could dominate the world. He smiled weakly and said in a low voice, "Do you want it?" Li Yunxin seemed to be at the end of his rope. However, the scenes of him killing hatred, destroying the Cloud Mountain, defeating the former sage, and resisting the 3 fierce attacks of the Lord Taoist were still in front of the demons. Now that he suddenly spoke, they couldn't resist and nodded subconsciously. Yes. However, as soon as they said this, they realized that something was wrong. Then, they saw Li Yunxin raise his hand. He threw the saber over as if it was trash. Take it if you want. The demon kings were dumbfounded. When the treasure, which was damaged but still shining, fell down, they suddenly came to their senses and rushed over to grab it. They scrambled to snatch it. Li Yunxin ignored them, laughing out loud. He reached his hand over his head and took off the lion crown that was missing an eye. His black hair fluttered wildly in the night wind. Who wants this? He suddenly did this. The Lord Taoist was stunned. The demons were also stunned. They didn't answer for a moment. Li Yunqin snorted coldly. If no one wants it, I'll throw it away. After saying this, he really threw the treasure into the sea of fire. The demons finally came to their senses. Immediately, dozens of them chased after it. The Lord Taoist narrowed his eyes and sneered. Humph. That's good. Divide the treasure before you die. It's not a waste. But if you want to escape because of this chaos, you're dreaming. After saying this, he frowned and shouted at the demons. Go ahead and snatch it. But if you let him take advantage of the chaos to escape, Ben Jun will not forgive you. After killing this fiend, I also have treasures on me. I'll bestow them all to you. In the end, he was still a meticulous person. He was afraid that the demons would be tricked by Li Yunqin and cause chaos. So he didn't hesitate to immediately give them precious treasures to reassure them. However, Li Yunqin did not seem to care about his words. After throwing away the lion crown, he reached out and tore at his chest. The purple gold armor on his body was torn into two along the crack. Countless demon kings who coveted his treasure sucked in cold breaths of air and heartache. He held the broken armor in his hand and tossed it over without any hesitation. Take it. Immediately, another group of demon kings swarmed forward like hyenas, snatching each other's food. Standing above the raging sea of fire, he looked a little like a wandering lion. A group of hyenas that were afraid of his power and did not dare to move forward. But because of their greed, they stared at him with drooling eyes, waiting for him to leave behind some relics before he died. In less than 10 breaths, all the treasures on his body were scattered. Now, he only wore a white robe and stood in the air with a head full of black hair. The Taoist lord sneered. Now that you have nothing to worry about, there's nothing to scatter, right? However, Li Yunqin stared at him again. After 2 breaths of silence, he said again, wait a moment. Then, without a change in expression, he fiercely pierced his own chest with his fingertips, which were now covered in sharp armor. Although they gradually knew that Li Yunqin often did unexpected things, his action still shocked the demons. Was he planning to kill himself? They saw that the 9th dragon's son not only stabbed his fingers into his chest, but even half of his forearm had entered his chest. The demons were all ferocious. If they cried out in pain when they were injured or disabled, they would be laughed at. But there weren't many who could be like Li Yunqin. She could stab her arm into her own chest and still stare calmly at the Taoist monarch without changing her expression. This calmness made the Taoist lord feel a little uneasy. He frowned and shouted, "What the hell are you doing?" Li Yunqin smiled. As if he had grabbed something in his chest, he slowly pulled his hand out. In the process of pulling it out, it seemed that something was stuck in his bones, so the progress was very slow. 5th brother wants a fair victory in front of all the demons in the world, right? Then what's the hurry? That old thing. At this point, he finally frowned and sucked in a breath as if he was spasming. A sharp-eyed demon king saw something protruding from the left side of his chest. It was as if he had accidentally touched his heart and pierced it when he was trying to pull it out. But he was Dragon's son after all, and he was in the profound realm. The toughness of his body had reached an unimaginable level. Even the wound that pierced through his heart only made him frown a little. Then he continued. That old thing scattered his body. He scattered mine again, hiss mixed in humph. At this point he seemed to have finally pulled something out. This stupid, smelly and dirty body is not fit to mix with me. If the demons didn't understand what he meant when he said this before, then wait, after he pulled the thing out of his chest, he was shocked to find out. It seemed to be a pile of bones and organs. However, the surface was full of Li Yunqin's golden dragon blood, so it was severely corroded, and now it was sizzling and emitting white smoke. Hearing his words, he thought of the saint of the mysterious sect who was only left with a light body before he died, as well as the messy and unsmooth aura that he had sensed. It turned out that what he pulled out from his body were the bones and organs of the Taoist priest. That madman used the magical power of the profound realm to shatter his body and Dragon's son's body. Then, it seemed that he couldn't support himself, so he used himself as a terrible weapon and inserted his bones and organs into Dragon Sun's body. Naturally, this was the result of slow movement, messy meridians, and mixed aura. Damn it, disgusting and vicious. Li Yunxin turned to look at the demons. Who wants this thing? But the surroundings were speechless. Even if he died today, the things that he had done, and the kind of bearing that he had displayed was enough to make many demon kings talk about him for a while. No one answered. He flipped his hand and threw the pile of trash into the fire. Only then did he let out a sigh of relief. It's peaceful now. It was indeed peaceful. At this moment his aura was smooth again, even though it was a little weak. His weakness was the weakness of Dragon Sun, who was in the profound realm of Shi. Dragons were demons among demons, and their bodies were extremely strong. In his current state, he wouldn't be defeated by any of the great demon kings on the battlefield. However, he was facing the Taoist Lord. It was unknown what kind of treasures the Taoist Lord had on him, but the treasured armor and divine weapons he had worn before were shattered by the two profound realm experts, Su Yusong and the Taoist Lord. He had divine abilities, but the Taoist Lord he saw now also had them. Moreover, the Taoist Lord had been in the profound realm of Shi for many years. Whether it was understanding, experience, or the use of power, they were all far above him. Now it seemed that he was definitely going to lose. Therefore, the Taoist Lord stared at him for a while and shook his head. You're an interesting person. I thought you had some conspiracy. It turns out that you really just want to die quietly. If you weren't too stupid and arrogant before. He stared at Li Yunxin seriously, and the demon power around him surged. I'd like to keep you alive for fun. The demons were all silent. The raging fire set the prairie ablaze. The two profound realm dragon suns were facing each other in midair, and a battle was about to break out. There was no suspense, and one of them would definitely die. At this moment, two powerful female demons also arrived, but they didn't make a move, nor did they step forward. They only stood quietly in the shadow of a hill not far away. There seemed to be another person in the shadow, watching and listening to the scene above the sea of fire. Therefore, Li Yunxin said the same thing for the third time tonight. He sighed and waved his hand. Wait a moment. Without waiting for the Taoist Lord, who seemed to be at the end of his patience, to speak, and without looking at the demon kings who were looking at each other, Li Yunxin flipped his palm and took out two jade bottles out of nowhere. Then he pulled out the cork of the jade bottle and raised his head. There was a clattering sound of metal colliding. It seemed that he had poured dozens of pills into his mouth. After chewing a few more times, a strange fragrance immediately filled the air, causing the demon kings to stare at it. That fragrance, as well as the terrifyingly rich spiritual power that they could all feel. Those were pills. The best of the best. Perhaps each pill required a cultivator with a profound cultivation base to refine for dozens or hundreds of years, experiencing countless failures and exhaustion before they could become a pill. Now Li Yunxin was pouring them into his mouth in large quantities, like a cow chewing on a peony without any refining or conditioning. Such a waste of natural resources. After eating the two bottles, he casually threw the jade bottles away. Immediately, a group of demons snatched them. To these demon kings who lived in the mountains, which one of the things in the mystic sect Holy Land was not a treasure. However, with a flip of his hand, there were 3 more bottles in his palm. Li Yunxin ate these supreme-grade pills like a whale sucking in water. In just 2 breaths, the time it took for the Taoist Lord to recover from his daze to shock, he had already eaten hundreds of pills. Anyone with a bit of cultivation would know how he ate. 100 pills would only be equivalent to 10 pills. The excess medicinal properties would be quickly expelled from his body and dissipate between heaven and earth. It had to be known that when ordinary people obtained an immortal pill, they would either swallow it, take a medicinal bath, or use it as a supplement. After a few days or even hundreds of days, they would slowly absorb it completely. Who had ever seen him eat like this? But even so, 6 breaths later, the golden blood on Li Yunxin's body disappeared, and the huge wound on his chest also disappeared. His aura was pushed to its peak by the medicinal properties. Surging demonic power once again surged in his meridians. When the Taoist Lord saw this, He felt as if he had fallen into a dream. His dragon palace was called Crimson Firmament Palace, and he was an expert in Taoist techniques. How could he not cultivate core Tao? Because of this, when he saw Li Yunxin swallow so many extremely precious pills, he temporarily forgot about the battle. Widening his blood-red eyes, he pointed at Li Yunxin and said in a trembling voice, You're wasting these elixirs." Li Yunxin threw away another jade bottle in his palm. Looking down at the demons fighting for the pills like hyenas, he looked up at the Taoist lord and smiled. "None of your business. I'm rich." Chapter 561. Not only that, I have plenty of them. As for the others, he looked at the Tao Lord calmly. He reached out and grabbed the air. Then, a long spear with gold essence and silver soul as its tassel appeared in his hand, emitting a murderous aura and radiating a cold light. His body shook slightly, then, he put on a chain-linked cloud leaf armor, a crown with 2 dragons fighting for pearls, and a pair of boots with a bronze lion's tail dipped in gold. I have plenty of divine weapons and treasured armors. Under the shocked gazes of the Tao Lord and the other demons, he took 2 steps forward in the air, held his spear, and stood in the wind. He said calmly, "The warm-up is over. Now, as you wish, I'll play with you." His calm words were filled with obvious viciousness. Every word seemed to have been soaked in the most evil poison for 100 years before being fished out and uttered to the Tao Lord, whose expression was now frozen on his face. Amidst the long and intense battles tonight, the scene of deathly silence had appeared more than once, but there had never been a time when it made people feel as if they were suffocating. How scheming." The Tao Lord was stunned for a full 3 breaths. Then, he calmed down and stared at Li Yunxin. What do you think? I'm afraid of you?" After he said that, he waved his sleeve and also destroyed his aura to the extreme. "Li Yunxin, take this." His shout was like a rumbling thunder, causing the Demon King's skulls to go numb. However, as soon as he finished speaking, the fiery-robed Tao Lord turned and fled. He didn't hesitate at all. The demons were in an uproar. They thought that their eyes were blinded by Li Yunxin's dazzling jewels and treasures. However, when they focused their eyes again, the Tao Lord had indeed fled hundreds of feet away. Who would have thought that the 5th dragon's son, who had been awe-inspiring in front of the demons and seemed to have the power to command all the demon kings in the world, would actually run away just like that? The crowd of demons was in an uproar, but Li Yunxin only sneered coldly. The ambition of falling into the formation will only lead to death. I'm not done playing. Where can you go?" As he spoke, his long sword shot out like a bolt of lightning towards the Tao Lord's back. There is a poem to prove it. A cold glint appeared first, followed by the spear like a dragon. His long lance was actually a rare treasure in the world. Although he was fast, he was still not as fast as the Tao Lord's escape. It seemed that he would not be able to catch up to him. However, there seemed to be no need to chase. In front of the frantically fleeing Tao Lord, a speck of cold light suddenly appeared, revealing half a spearhead. It turned out that this treasured lance also had the ability to shatter the void and fake the rules of force. When the Taoist monarch saw this, he was shocked and immediately changed his direction to the side. However, the treasured lance immediately unleashed a storm of attacks that enveloped him from all sides. Seeing that the situation was far from good, he didn't know what treasure he had taken out. First, a layer of golden light shrouded his body. Then, a dazzling golden flower shadow suddenly bloomed in the space, dispersing almost all of the attacks from the treasured lance, leaving only a few scattered phantoms in front of him. When they collided with his golden light, there was a series of clanging sounds like rain falling on banana leaves, but they couldn't hurt him at all. Then the Tao Lord sneered, "Want to keep me here?" Then he flew forward. It would have been fine if he hadn't said that. Now that he had said it, Li Yunxin also sneered, "You want to compete with me in wealth? Come on." After saying that, he waved his hand, and a colorful rain of light instantly sprayed out. When the demons saw that Li Yunxin had created another set of armor, they were all dumbfounded and thought to themselves, "He is indeed extravagant." Now that they saw the rain of light, they wondered what kind of magic treasure he had released. However, when the raindrops rapidly grew in size in the air and shone brightly, they were dumbfounded. It was not a magic treasure. It was obvious that he had released dozens of magic treasures at once. Each of them was like a treasured lance with its own divine power. As soon as they appeared, they used their own methods. The demons were dazzled, but before they could see clearly what kind of divine power they had, the Tao Lord, who had already jumped more than 1,000 feet away, was captured again. Seeing the Tao Lord's appearance, the demons had to sigh with emotion. After all, Dragon's son was a demon among demons, a member of the nobility of the Dragon dynasty. Now, he was surrounded by more than 30 different kinds of treasures. Some looked like sabers, spears, swords, and halberds. Some looked like flower baskets, iron pots, jade hairpins, and so on. There were also some that didn't have a physical form, just shadows. These treasures were like living creatures, eerily facing the Tao Lord and surrounding him. However, this Tao Lord had been running the Crimson Firmament Palace for 2,000 years, and he seemed to have collected many good things. Now, it seemed that he had used all of them to save his life. He was surrounded by 49 small swords, forming a sword formation. There were dozens of round, shining beads in between the gaps. The light released from the beads blocked the restrictions, preventing them from enveloping the Tao Lord. There were also dozens of flying knives, flying swords, iron rulers, and scepters. A total of nearly 100 treasures added together to protect him, temporarily keeping him safe. However, these treasures were clearly not of the same grade as the treasures left behind by Saint Yunshan. In just a few breaths, the swords and sabers let out hoarse sounds of being unable to withstand the pressure, and cracks appeared. The Tao Lord struggled for a while, dodging left and right, but still couldn't escape. Only then did he turn to stare at Li Yunxin, shouting in a low voice, "I advise you not to force me to fight to the death with you." Li Yunxin sneered and took a step in the void. Immediately, a pure white cloud formed under his feet and supported him. It seemed it was also a magic treasure. He walked a few steps on this cloud, stared at the Tao Lord for a while, and said, "Fight to the death with me. Do you think you're worthy?" That old thing Su Yusong wanted to use the magical power of the mystic realm to kill me, but in the end, he got himself killed. Li Yunxin stared at him with a faint smile. "Do you want to try?" 10 breaths ago, this Tao Lord was full of ambition, and Long Jiu was in a sorry state, as if he was at the end of his rope. But now, the situation was reversed, and this famous Tao Lord was in prison. He was about to become a stray dog. The situation changed so quickly, so much so that many demon kings in the distance still didn't know what was going on. The Tao Lord looked at Li Yunxin with a ferocious expression. After hesitating for a moment, he didn't say anything, but suddenly turned his head and shouted at the crowd of demons, "What are you waiting for? This Li Yunxin has so many treasures on him, and you're only willing to pick up some trash? Now come up and kill him. All the treasures are yours. The Taoist technique that I promised you is also yours." But Li Yunxin didn't say anything. He also turned his face and looked at the crowd of demons. And these demons came here a quarter of an hour ago for the treasures on him. Now they knew that he really had a lot of rare treasures, and they got another promise from the Tao Lord. But they hesitated and hesitated again. Today was different from the past. Even the powerful mystic realm Long Sun died in the hands of Li Yunxin, and he saw that there were still more treasures that he hadn't used. Although the demons were greedy, their lives weren't other people's lives that could be casually taken away to die. Who dared to touch this bad luck? Seeing this, Li Yunxin sneered again. "They came to take my treasures, but they might not have the life to use them. But wait until I kill you and take your treasures. Although they're just bits and pieces, they can still be used. Tell me, why did they come to me to seek death?" The Tao Lord's face became extremely ugly, but he still shouted, "A bunch of idiots. Do you think he'll let you go after killing me? Think about what he has on him." When he said this, the magic treasures that protected him gradually couldn't hold on anymore. The 49 flying swords made a twisting sound, and soon, 4 of them broke into pieces. He has already used so many How many more can he have? The treasures of Cloud Mountain are the treasures left by the saints of the past, so they must be strictly guarded. If he could take them out when he was just in the true realm, how many heroes among the demons in the past tens of thousands of years don't know how to take them themselves? Look at him now, he's arrogant, but in fact he's deliberately mystifying. He used everything he could in one breath, scaring you so that you don't dare to come forward. Otherwise, why would he say these words to me here, and not take my life immediately? Idiots! Great wealth and opportunities are right in front of you. After tonight, when Li Yunxin hides in the mountain, where can you find him? If you refine for 1 or 2,000 years, can you refine the magic treasures on him? What are you waiting for? Although the Daylord's tongue was good, what he said now was a bit far-fetched. If it was in the secular world, he probably wouldn't be able to scare many people. But many of these demons were not as smart as the mortals in the secular world. Moreover, they were short-sighted people who had no standpoint. After he said this, there were actually some who were eager to make trouble, and looked at Li Yunxin with malicious eyes. Seeing this, the Daylord exerted all his strength to activate the magic treasures to resist the pressure of Li Yunxin's treasures, and shouted with all his might, "Think again. This Li Yunxin dared to kill Long Jiao, dared to kill Long Air, and now killed me. He has already become an enemy of the dragons. He is such a fake, he will be killed by the world in the future. That's why he's so arrogant and crazy. Once I die, he will definitely kill you. If you don't help me now, just wait for me to be slaughtered like a pig or a dog after I die." He mentioned counterfeits, which was a new term for the demons. Before this, they had always called him Li Yunxin, which was a personal name. It was not unusual for demons to have a personal name. For example, Red Lady's personal name was Li Xianyu, and Zither Lady's personal name was Bailey Qinxin. However, fiendish demons had complicated and contradictory feelings towards humans. When they were livestock, they were naturally inferior to humans. They wholeheartedly wanted to achieve the Tao and transform into human form, so that they could cultivate with the meridians and meridians of humans. However, after transforming into humans, they had the spiritual intelligence of humans, and their bodies were far stronger than that of humans. Moreover, they saw the stupidity and weakness of mortals, so they looked down on them and wanted to use them as food. But there were also cultivators among humans, and the power of Xianmen was also oppressing the demons. Chapter 562. Therefore, these many emotions intertwined together, causing them to have a very complicated feeling towards human names. On the one hand, they wanted this name. On the other hand, they felt that it was undignified and would be ridiculed by others. Only the most unruly and powerful part of them didn't mind this. Lord Daoist and these demons called Li Yunxin, instead of Lord of Wei River, Chiwen or even Dragon Jiao, which was actually very disdainful. Now that the word imposter was mentioned, some demons who didn't understand asked what it meant. Not many people knew that Dragon Jiao was possessed by a person. In the past, only a limited number of famous great demon kings, under Lord Tongtian and Guqin monarch, had heard of it. Now that it had been mentioned, the news quickly spread. Everyone knew that Dragon Jiao used to be a mere transcendent state. What they didn't know was that Dragon Jiao, as Dragon Son, was the shame of demons. Not only was his realm low, but he was also killed and possessed by a person. That person was the current Li Yunxin. The 9th young master used to hide in the Wei River, and had a mysterious great demon Lord Dongting by his side. It could be said that he was monitoring or protecting him. But after all, the demons knew very little about the 9th dragon son. If it wasn't for today's incident, many demons would have thought that this Li Yunxin was the previous Dragon Jiao. When the words really spread, the demons looked at Li Yunxin in a different way. For these demons who had no standpoint, many factors could cause a subtle change in their attitude. Now that they knew that Li Yunxin was not the real dragons first, a demonic voice called out. If this is true, this Li Yunxin killed Lord Daoist, I'm afraid that he will really come to us. Then someone said, Li Yunxin, is what Lord Daoist said true? After all, there were many demons. It was like a dark cloud surrounding the two people who were fighting. Some of the busybodies didn't have to worry about being caught if they were to talk. So for a moment, voices of agreement rose from all around. It was as if a pack of wolves had surrounded their prey and were testing the waters before launching an all-out attack. It seemed as if they were about to swarm forward together. How could Li Yunqin answer their nonsense? He stood still on the cloud. He brandished the treasured lance in his hand and said coldly, "If you want to seek death, then come. Come on. If I let any of you leave alive, then I'll consider my title as the Wei River Lord just an empty title." He was practically saying this to all the demon kings in the world. It could be said that he was the most arrogant person in the world. As a result, shouts and curses could be heard from all directions, but in the end, no one rushed forward. When the Tao Lord saw this, he was delighted and was about to speak again. Suddenly someone said, "Fifth brother said earlier that no one is allowed to interfere. Although there is a madman from the Xianmen sect here, so it can't be considered a fair duel. He is still a human cultivator. He can't be considered as a demon, so I'll just pretend that he doesn't exist. But now, the human cultivator is already dead, and everyone here is a fiendish demon. At this time, if anyone dares to interfere, I'll be the first to not allow it. The words that I, the dragons, say in front of all the demons in the world, can't be ignored." Hearing this voice, the Tao Lord's expression changed greatly. He saw that the group of demons in the sky slowly parted to form a path. It was the dragon third evil spirit, and the female demon beside her, Bai Yunqin, who came on the cloud. 15 minutes ago, he wasn't afraid of these two people. At that time, he was confident that he had the power to kill Li Yunqin in an instant. Moreover, the hearts of all the demon kings were on his side. If the evil spirit came to help Li Yunqin, he only needed to ask the demons to stop him. In fact, when he said that he didn't want the demons to interfere, it was to guard against this. But now, the situation was reversed, and his third sister appeared. It was like adding snow to snow. Previously, Li Yunqin said that the Tao Lord was an interesting fiendish demon. At this time, the Tao Lord was indeed interesting. When the evil spirit was seriously injured, he said in the sky that he didn't deserve to be Dragon's son but Pengzi. Now, he was trapped in Li Yunqin's attack and couldn't escape temporarily, so his attitude changed drastically. "Third sister, what are you talking about?" He shouted immediately. "This Li Yunqin killed our ninth brother and took his body. Third sister, are you going to treat him as your family now? We are real siblings. Third sister, don't be fooled by his flowery words." Li Yunqin laughed loudly and pointed at the Tao Lord from afar. "Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. This is the first time I've seen a fiendish demon like you. Let me see what else you can say." But the Tao Lord's expression didn't change at all. He ignored Li Yunqin's sarcasm and said, "Third sister, did you receive some benefits from him? And also want to be enemies with all the demons in the world? Don't you even remember the death of our ninth brother? It's a pity that our ninth brother died so miserably. That day I saw him with my own eyes. I saw it with my own eyes." His words of grief and indignation were interrupted again. What did fifth brother see with his own eyes? Hearing this voice, the Tao Lord frowned. The demons also looked in the direction of the voice, and were somewhat puzzled. This time it was a man's voice, but although he called the Tao Lord Swan fifth brother, the Tao Lord didn't have any impression of him. Then, another person walked out from the crowd of demons. This person was extremely handsome, even according to the weird aesthetic standards of the demons. Li Yunqin was also very beautiful. At least among the demons now, no one was better than him. However, the person who had just walked out was even more handsome than him. He was also wearing a white robe. Although his face was calm, there was a hint of evil charm. In this aspect, it formed a contrast with Li Yunqin. Both of them were handsome, but Li Yunqin's handsomeness made people feel close to him when they saw him. But this person only made people afraid of being charmed by him. This person didn't hide his aura at all. It was even as if he was showing off, and he released it without any scruples. The demons knew that this was a great demon at the peak of the true realm. The peak of the true realm was indeed an extremely powerful cultivation in the whole world. But in this situation, it wasn't the top. There was a fiend lord at the peak of the profound realm, a Tao lord at the Shi mystical realm, and there was also Li Yunxin who was at the same realm. Not to mention that there were more than 10 profound realm, and even more true realm demons among the demons. They didn't know why this person was showing off. The Tao lord stared at him and frowned. Who are you? This person called him fifth brother. However, he was not one of the remaining dragon sons that the Tao lord knew. He could not even match his cultivation level. But the strange thing was, he did have dragon chi on him. But the dragon chi made him frown. He felt that there was something else mixed in it that he couldn't explain. But among the demons a voice suddenly exclaimed, "Didn't they say he died?" Someone else asked the person who spoke. Hearing this, the demon hesitated for a while. Finally he said with certainty, "Isn't this Dragon Jiao? I once passed by Wei River and met Dragon Jiao." As soon as he said this, there were a few voices echoing him. Some said it was true. Some said they had seen him before. The demons were in an uproar. The Tao Lord was even more surprised and shouted, "Who is misleading us?" The handsome man smiled evilly, squinted his eyes and looked at the source of the voice. "Ha, it's you. You scorpion spirit passed by my Wei River and ate a family of 3 people in the city. I wanted to kill you, but you escaped. You were only at the transcendent realm then. Now you have cultivated to the true realm. You've really improved." The scorpion spirit didn't say anything. It looked like he was right. He was afraid of being sought revenge, so he quickly retreated. The Tao Lord widened his eyes. Where did this madman come from? My 9th brother has been killed by Li Yunxin. 5th brother, I'm still alive. The man looked at the Tao Lord with a malicious gaze. Not only am I alive, but I have also cultivated to the peak of the true realm. 5th brother, you said I was killed in front of all the demons. What are your intentions? As he said this, his appearance changed. Fine scales appeared on his face, and a pair of blood-red coral antlers grew out of his forehead. Clouds and mist rose under his sleeves. He really was dragons. I'm Chiwen. The 9th young master stared at the Tao Lord, and then slowly turned his head to look at the demons. He said darkly, because of a coincidence, I had to cultivate in seclusion. So I temporarily entrusted Wei River to Li Yunxin. This Li Yunxin is good at doing things, and he's also my friend. Later he was summoned by Shinryu, who personally conferred Wei River to him. Thus, the title of Wei River Lord naturally belonged to him. My 3rd sister can testify to this. If there is a rumor that I was killed and possessed, haha, he's really evil and should be punished. The demons were speechless. Or perhaps they had a lot of things to say. But with 4 dragon sons, including one who was said to be dead, they really didn't understand the current situation. How dare they talk nonsense? The Tao Lord was furious. You idiot. I'll take it that you're really Chi-Wen of the Dragon 9. Let me ask you, have you ever thought about what you said for Li Yunxin because of some petty benefits, or because you were threatened by them? Have you ever thought about how you will live in the future if you admit that your title and land belong to him in front of all the heroes in the world? Where will you go? Ha, you don't have to worry about this. Li Yunxin had been watching the show with cold eyes. Now he finally opened his mouth and said lazily, "The Lord of Shinryu is naturally powerful. He conferred me the title of Wei River Lord, and gave me Wei River. How could he not consider what you said?" Speaking of this, his tone gradually turned cold. The Lord already knew. Long de Chionyo and Long Heir of Hatred were plotting against me, so I got rid of these 2 troubles. He also said that the 9th young master had made great contributions in protecting the Dongting dragon soul, so I couldn't mistreat him. So after killing Long Heir of Hatred, he turned his palm and held a golden object. His face turned serious and he shouted, "Dragon 9, listen to the title." The 9th young master immediately stepped forward on a cloud and knelt down on one knee toward the object in Li Yunxin's palm, saying, "Dragon 9, receive the token of Shinryu." Li Yunxin shouted again, "The Dragon God token is here. Pass on the Imperial Edict of Shinryu. Long Heir of Hatred plotted treason and ordered the Lord of Wei River to kill him. His title is Lord Tongtian, and his fief is heaven-reaching. Chi one of the Dragon 9. Seeing the Dragon God token is like seeing the Lord of God in person. Anyone who disobeys will be killed by all the monsters in the world. The 9th young master stood up. He looked straight into Li Yunxin's eyes and said in a deep voice, Chi one of the Lord Tongtian. Thank the Lord of Shinryu for his grace. Chapter 563. The group of demons was silent. In fact, since the moment that golden object appeared in Li Yunxin's hand, no one dared to speak anymore. These demons might not recognize the shape of that object, but they could definitely feel the aura that was emitted from that object. It was so powerful that it made them want to bow down and worship it. The long, narrow, and shiny object in Li Yunxin's hand was the Dragon God token. The Divine Dragon token was made from a piece of scale armor that the true Dragon Monarch had broken when he fought against the Golden Rock King. The Lord Shinryu was the ruler of all demons in the world, but her control was not as strong as that of a human emperor. It was more like a title. Although the Dragon God token was a legendary treasure, it did have the powerful aura of Shinryu. However, if Li Yunxin were to take it out and instruct a great demon to do something, the great demon would most likely agree on the surface, or even ignore her. But Li Yunxin took it out in the current situation, and it made the best use of it. The Dragon Sun was fighting, and the demons who had no side were watching and wavering. It seemed that everyone's words were reasonable, but it was not enough to make the final decision and completely suppress the other side. At this time, he took out this thing that had no power, but was extremely sacred among the demons. Looking at the Lord Taoist's pale face, he knew that the situation was irreversible. Strength and reason, now both were not on his side. What made him even angrier was that Li Yunxin took out this thing and made up some nonsense about the Lord Shinryu's imperial edict, which made him change the incident of killing Lord Tongtian hatred into acting on the Lord Shinryu's order. How could the 9 of them not know what the Lord Tongtian was thinking? Indeed, they hoped that their power would be weakened. Li Yunxin's fake edict would probably turn into reality in the future. Not only would he not receive any punishment, he would even be rewarded by the Shinryu. Why. And what's with that Longjiao? How did he survive? He did not look like a ghostly cultivator. At this time, Li Yunxin turned to look at him and sternly shouted, Lao Ai. I was ordered by the Divine Monarch to kill the rebellious minister, Hatred, but you obstructed me in every possible way and made things difficult for me. He even gathered a group of demon kings and demon generals to rebel. Are you convinced that I will kill you today? The Tao Lord cursed. T. Who would believe your nonsense? Ask them if they believe it. Do you believe it yourself? As soon as he finished speaking, before Li Yunxin could say anything, the group of demons immediately shouted, Lord Wei River is wise. The Divine Lord is wise. We don't know the truth and came here to watch. How would we know that he has sinister intentions? Exactly. This mixed fur lion betrayed his superiors. His death is not to be regretted. We are so excited that we can't wait to eat his flesh. Well said. We were deceived by this rebellious minister. We are ashamed of the Shinryu's grace. Li Yunxin said that the Divine Monarch was a hypocrite, and these demon kings were the real villains. They really did not have any standpoint. They just listened to the wind and thought it was the rain. Now that he shouted like this, the Tao Lord finally tasted what Li Yunxin had experienced before. After a moment of being stunned, he roared, Good! You will regret this sooner or later. He said a lot of things just to use the momentum of the group of demons to break Li Yunxin's strength. He did not expect that both were in the hands of Li Yunxin. He could not get any benefits, and there was no room for negotiation. Even if he was a hypocrite, he was still a big demon of the dragons. Therefore, his arrogant courage finally burst out at this moment. His body shook violently, and he grew with the wind. Originally, he was surrounded by many magic treasures to protect him. Now his body that was wrapped in a fiery red robe suddenly revealed Bai An's original form, and he grew dozens of feet. In an instant, those magic treasures exploded with a bang, turning into countless streams of light. As a result, when his magic treasures were destroyed, the group of demons immediately let out a loud sigh, as if those magic treasures were already in their pockets. This made Bai An even angrier, and with another roar, he revealed his true form that was hundreds of feet long. Only now did he realize that he had really been cautious before. Li Yunxin used many magic treasures, and when he saw that the situation was not good, he turned around and ran. He seemed to be extremely afraid of those things. But now that he knew that he had no way out, he had to unleash his ferocious nature. When this tyrannical true form appeared, not only did he destroy his own magic treasures, but he also scattered the magic treasures that were used to trap him, turning them into streams of light and returning to Li Yunxin's palm. Although this also caused many huge and terrible wounds to appear on his body, and the golden blood fell like a waterfall into the sea of fire on the ground, it was enough to show the tyrannical true form of the dragons. When he was really at his wit's end, he still had the power to fight back. Li Yunxin kept the magic treasures that were scattered by Bai An in his palm, looked down at them, then threw them back and snorted coldly, "Useless things. Then I'll reward you." Those dozens of magic treasures fell from the sky like garbage. This time, the eyes of the group of demons were red, and the ground was in a mess. Because just now, he clearly saw that when Lao Ai smashed those dozens of magical treasures into pieces, it was merely smashing them into pieces. Most of the magic treasures were intact, and only a few were damaged. But even those few only had insignificant cracks, and were no different from undamaged jades. Now this way River Lord, just because he failed to trap Bai An, he casually threw them away, saying they were useless things. What a damn generous man. There was probably no one else in the world who could be so generous. He was really a dragon king who gave away his wealth. The group of demons fought among themselves. However, this time, those who fought over the magic treasures were all big demon kings who didn't care about the garbage that Li Yunxin threw away. More demon kings and demon generals with slightly lower cultivation levels didn't dare to get involved in this mess, so they stared at Li Yunxin, who was high up in the sky. They really wanted this generous Wei River Lord to throw down a few more pieces of trash, the best kind of course, so that they could have a share. Now Li Yunxin also shouted, "Good. Finally, you look a bit like Dragon Son." Then, he raised the long spear in his hand and bravely pounced forward. When demons fought in human form, they had the advantage of using divine abilities, but they weren't good at defense. If they fought with their half-human, half-demon fiend god bodies, they could take care of both. But ultimately, they weren't as strong as their true bodies. Now that Bai An was fighting against Li Yunxin, it didn't have much of an advantage in terms of treasures and divine abilities, so it revealed its true body, which was hundreds of feet tall, in order to fight. But Li Yunxin still fought it head-on in his human form, which was extremely fierce. When Bai An saw him coming, it first opened its mouth and spat out a mouthful of red poisonous fire. Now that its body was huge, when it spat out the fire, it swayed its head in the sky, so the range of the fire was extremely large, and two enlightened Dao masters who couldn't dodge in time were caught in it. In an instant, the two true realm demon kings were turned into ashes, not even leaving behind a scream. The fire was so terrifying, but Li Yunxin's body exploded with a brilliant light, and he directly rushed in. The spear went straight for the throat of the giant Bai An beast. Bai An knew the power of his treasured spear, but he didn't panic. He shook his head again, and the thick mane on his neck opened up like a big umbrella. No one knew what kind of divine ability he was born with. The space in front of his head fluctuated horribly, and Li Yunxin's body, which was clearly pouncing forward, suddenly flew backward, and the brilliant light on his body was quickly extinguished. In the blink of an eye, the treasured armor was smashed into pieces, and the white robe underneath was revealed. Only the treasured spear in his hand wasn't affected. In the instant that Li Yunxin was sent flying backward, it disappeared. The next moment, It suddenly appeared in the void above Baian's head and stabbed down fiercely. Baian's true body was huge. To him, this treasured spear was like a thin needle, but everyone knew how terrifying this thin needle was. In the blink of an eye, it went into its head, and Baian let out a deafening scream. Seeing this, even the evil lord frowned and said in shock, What kind of evil technique is he practicing?" As Li Yunxin's body flew backward, he shook violently. The broken armor that was still hanging on his body was shaken into tiny fragments by him and fell to the ground. At this moment, another layer of brilliant treasured armor appeared from the white robe, and he was armed. He laughed in midair. "Ha ha ha ha. Your technique is just SOO. Take another strike from me." He waved his hand again. The treasured spear that went into Baian's head came out of Baian's left eye with a buzz, and a shower of blood poured out. Being severely injured, Long Sun's screams became even louder, and the whole ground shook slightly. Looking at the treasured spear that returned to Li Yunxin's hand, the long and sharp spear head had become a discus. It was as if a blacksmith had heated it in a furnace and hammered it into this state. But in fact, because Long Sun's physical body was too strong, the treasured spear went through his head and came out of his left eye, and it was destroyed. Seeing this scene, the group of demons immediately burst into cheers. They were not cheering for the evil lord being severely injured, but for the treasured spear to be lost again. As expected, Li Yunxin held it in his hand, swept it slightly, and then threw it far away. This thing buzzed as it landed in the distance, attracting a swarm of demons to swarm towards it. His heroism made even Bai Yunxin's heart ache. She frowned and said to the evil lord, "This thing, he lost it. Even if he brought out all the treasures in Cloud Mountain, he shouldn't have." But the evil lord only looked at Li Yunxin's figure. He must have his reasons for doing this. Let's wait and see. In fact, his expression was slightly shocked. In this world, from ancient times until now, probably no one had ever seen a person with so many treasures on him. If the two Cloud Mountain sages brought all of these with them when they came out of the mountain, the demons would have a huge headache. Lao Ai's brain was severely injured, but he seemed to be fine. He was the most unusual one among the Dragon's Son. He was said to have been comprehending Dao in Crimson Cloud Palace. The move he had used earlier was very powerful, but everyone knew that it shouldn't be that powerful. The fifth son of the Dragon's Son, at his peak, should be much stronger than he was now, right? Right at this moment, a treasured sword appeared in Li Yunxin's hand. This treasured sword looked very different from the previous two weapons. The previous two weapons were bright and shiny, and looked very exaggerated. With one look, one could tell that they must be extraordinary, and they were rare immortal treasures. However, this sword indeed looked like a piece of scrap metal. The body of the sword was full of rust, and there was no light to speak of. It looked like an iron sword that had been soaked in muddy water for a year and a half. It was so rusty that it would break at a touch. The demons were surprised to see him take out this thing. It seemed like Li Yunxin was also surprised. He did not expect that he would casually take out this thing. But at this moment, Lao Ai seemed to realize that if he did not use his full strength today, he would not be able to leave here alive. So he shouted, "Good, good, good. You forced me to do this." As soon as he said that, his real body quickly dissipated and shrunk, revealing his godly body. Logically, his real body could not withstand Li Yunxin's treasures. This godly body would only be more badly injured. But seeing this, the evil lord frowned and said in a low voice, "Strange." Not only did the evil lord think it was strange, even Li Yunxin felt it was strange, because the godly body of the Dao Lord looked a little familiar. Actually, it was normal that it looked familiar. It was a form between a real body and a human form. But now the godly body of the Dao Lord did not look like the Lao Ai at all. His body was covered with pale green armor instead of scales. Large pieces of exoskeleton wrapped around him, as if they were forged from black iron. They shone with a cold light in the fire. There were fierce and sharp bone spurs on the exoskeleton, like thistles and thorns, reaching high into the sky. Every time he breathed, a fiery red mist would rise from the gaps of the armor, causing the air within a few feet around him to distort because of the heat. This appearance was familiar to everyone in the array today. It was very similar to the two scary skeletons. Li Yunxin immediately frowned and stared at him. "What are you?" The Tao Lord spoke in a low and hoarse voice, as if metal was squeezing against each other. He said, "Ever since I cultivated this crimson firmament Dharma body, I have never shown it in front of others. You are the one who is seeking death today, forcing me to show it. Li Yunxin, today I will sacrifice your life to it." After he said this, his arms suddenly sank. With his terrifying body as the center, the fire within a few miles was extinguished. It was as if he had absorbed all the heat and light, leaving only coldness and darkness in the world. Previously, he had used his real body to spit fire and burn two demon kings, who could not dodge in time to ashes. Therefore, the group of demons had retreated a lot, so that they would not be affected. Who would have thought that the Tao Lord would use this technique again? As the flames were extinguished, the monster kings who were caught up in the shockwaves of the Tao Lord's power began to fall from the skies like dumplings, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. Not only did he look shockingly similar to the skeletons, but his ability was also similar. He had forbidden these demon kings from using their supernatural powers. Seeing this, the Tao Lord immediately laughed strangely. "Ha ha ha, Li Yunxin, let's see what you can do to me with that broken metal." Chapter 564. In the time it took to say that, the Tao Lord pounced towards Li Yunxin. As he moved, the restrictions surrounding him also moved, enveloping many demon kings within them. In the end, those unlucky fellows also fell into the sea of fire one by one, presumably in a flurry. Li Yunxin seems to be surprised to see him like this. She doesn't attack but retreats. Stepping on the auspicious cloud, she walks hundreds of feet away. It seems that she wants to figure out his situation first. At this moment, the evil lord flicked his wrist, which was hidden in his black sleeves, and shot out a sharp demonic power. However, as soon as her monster power enters the inhibition of the Lord of Tao, it disappears immediately. The situation is exactly the same as when she fought with the skeleton. The previous scene is not a camouflage, but a powerful inhibition. This inhibition is different from all the supernatural powers that the Lord of Tao knows. Even people from Daotong and Kenzo can't do anything about it. Where did the Lord of Tao learn the skills of the skeleton? Why does he only use it now? However, these thoughts only appear in her mind for a second. The evil lord immediately pulls Bai Yunxin back. He also says to the ninth young master who is standing beside them and staring at Li Yunxin, "Step back." It's weird. Human feelings are different in the human world. So is the world of demons. The dragon Jiuqi Kiss used to have low personal ability and was controlled by the old lord of Dongting. Therefore, his brothers and sisters didn't want to associate with him. Whether they looked down on him or not, it's more because of the Lord Dongting. The Lord Dongting has high personal ability and has been operating in Dongting for a long time. It's not appropriate for others to peep into his territory when they have nothing to do. Therefore, the relationship between the evil lord and the ninth younger brother is actually very indifferent. Now the evil lord also reminds him, maybe it's because she once regarded Li Yunxin as her ninth younger brother, so she loves him because of him. However, the ninth young master doesn't leave immediately. He hesitates for a while. The evil lord sees the eagerness in his eyes. She had rarely seen this kind of light in a demon's eyes. It meant that he was eager to try. It meant that he had an infinite longing for this world. And it even meant that he had some wild ambitions. She understood immediately after thinking about it. Her ninth brother used to be depressed and had a low cultivation base. If it was an ordinary fiendish demon, it would have been fine. However, it just had to be Long Sun. The huge contrast would inevitably leave an indelible mark in his heart and bring about many problems. Now because of Li Yunxin, he possessed power that he had never dared to imagine before. Naturally, he was eager to try. It was like a swordsman obtaining a treasured sword, or a saber user obtaining a treasured saber. When a child learning to write gets a new notebook, they will want to try it out immediately. Bai Yunxin snorted, "Little Nine Dragon, don't ask for trouble. I'm afraid that even Li Yunxin will have to spend a lot of effort to deal with him. Don't give him more trouble." The ninth young master suddenly turned around and stared at Bai Yunxin. For a moment, his face showed a terrible and ferocious expression, which made him look extremely ferocious. But soon, his expression turned into pure anger. It seemed that when he saw Bai Yunxin, he realized he had reached the peak of the true realm. However, Bai Yunxin had gone one step further, and was also in the mysterious realm. Between them, there was an insurmountable gap. It was really unlucky. Seeing his expression, Bai Yunxin also stared at him and showed a fierce expression. "Well, little Nine Dragon, I haven't seen you for a month or two, but you have improved a lot. Have you forgotten the time when you were chased by me?" The ninth young master's face showed an embarrassed expression. He snorted and snorted again and again, then said bitterly, "I saved his life. Twice thrice." As he said so, he slowly retreated. At this time, the Lord Taoist had already fought with Li Yunxin. Previously, the Lord Taoist used his Tao and divine powers, and Li Yunxin used his treasured armor to fight with him. But now, the situation was reversed. The Lord Taoist used his terrifying armor to pounce on Li Yunxin. Li Yunxin was also afraid of the restrictive spell, and moved away from him. After all, the Lord Taoist had many magic treasures and methods. But when the needles shot out from his palm, they were full of vigor. But once they flew into the Lord Taoist's restrictive spell, they immediately lost their brilliance and became ordinary objects. These things couldn't hurt the Lord Taoist's sturdy armor at all. He reached out his hand and casually touched his body to catch the magic treasures. Then, like Li Yunxin, he sprinkled the magic treasures on the ground and shouted, "You want these things? Wait until I kill him. Ahahaha. I can have them as I please." His laughter at this time seemed to be crazy. It seemed that becoming like this had also affected his mind. So he lost his previous sinister but rational and cautious appearance, and completely became a madman. The divine powers that Li Yunxin's magic treasures released were useless against him. But the Lord Taoist couldn't catch up to Li Yunxin, who was on the auspicious cloud. As a result, this new round of battle became tedious and boring after experiencing an imposing aura that caused everyone in the arena to feel insecure. To the demons, it wasn't even as interesting as when the Lord Taoist was chased by Li Yunxin. At least at that time, Li Yunxin would leave behind many broken magic treasures. But now what the Lord Taoist left behind were all intact. They weren't something that the numerous low-level demon kings and demon generals could covet. Just like that, the 15 minutes of battle passed quickly. The Lord Taoist began to become more and more angry. He let out a crazy roar. But Li Yunxin moved more and more calmly, as if he had slowly figured out his methods and was thinking of new ways. Thus, no one realized that there was actually another person nearby. It was a genuine person, and a her at that. It was about 10 li away from where Li Yunxin and the Lord Taoist were fighting. Looking from here, even the light of the fire had become indistinct, and the group of demons was just a mass of black mist. A woman stood in the shadow of a short tree, her figure blending into the darkness. Her breathing was very slow, almost non-existent. Her eyes were very bright as she focused 10 li away. It was as if she didn't need anything to see the situation there. Even a great demon like the Fiend Lord, whose cultivation was almost at the peak of the Xian realm, didn't sense her existence. After watching for a while, she finally moved. She first closed her eyes slightly and thought quietly as if considering something. Then, she opened her mouth and sighed lightly. "Ah, he isn't the person we're looking for." "Master, are you sure?" So, she wasn't the only person in the shadow of the short tree. There was also a man standing behind her. Speaking of this man, Li Yunxin should be familiar with him. He had met him twice before. Once in the city of Wei in the kingdom of Qing, and the other in Rong in the kingdom of Yu. It was none other than shopkeeper Wang of Munanju. In Rong in the kingdom of Yu, he had contacted Li Yunxin and said a lot. The woman didn't speak. She just closed her eyes again, as if calculating something. Shopkeeper Wang waited quietly for 3 breaths. Seeing that his mistress hadn't spoken, he lowered his voice and slowly said, "But there shouldn't be anyone more suitable than him. When we were in Little Rock, we said he wouldn't be able to survive the battle of the Marquises. But now, not only is he alive, he's turned his situation around. Before, he was besieged on all sides. Now he's become a vassal, and has won over a few powerful allies. Although we've helped a bit, in the end, it's still him who has some shocking abilities." Speaking to this point, he carefully looked at the woman's expression. Seeing that she wasn't unhappy, he continued, "What is the master not satisfied with? From the moment he stepped out of that mountain village, we've been watching him and testing him. I've never seen anyone who could make the master spend so much effort. These days, for him, we've mobilized a lot of manpower and resources. But," Shopkeeper Wang sighed, "the person the master is looking for, what does he look like?" The woman still stood there for a long time. Then she let out a light breath and took a step forward. Thus she walked out of the shadows. Her appearance was illuminated by the light from the sky and the fire in the distance. This was an extremely shocking beauty. It was almost difficult to describe with words. It was Taoist Qing Shui, who had lived in the capital of the Qing kingdom. "How could I not know what you're talking about? Using extremely secretive methods to change the direction of the world, involving him in the test, and making sure that a smart person like him wouldn't see through it, and that he wouldn't really die. This kind of difficulty is also very difficult for me." Speaking to this point, she raised her hand. She stretched out a slender finger in the dim light, and seemed to be stirring something aimlessly. Then she sighed softly. "I thought that he had forgotten many things. But now it seems that he really doesn't know. Now he's afraid of this Lord of Taoism. Perhaps he really isn't the person I'm looking for. But since you think so highly of him, give him one last chance." Listening to her tone, it seemed that she had given Li Yunqin many tests and many chances. However, Li Yunqin failed again and again. Thus, at this moment, this beautiful Taoist Qing Shui had lost hope and confidence in him. Shopkeeper Wang still wanted to say something, but Taoist Qing Shui's finger had already hooked. "But I'm afraid you're going to be disappointed. Just wait and see." After saying this, she turned and walked into the distance. It looked like she was about to leave. At the same time, Li Yunqin, who had been cautiously keeping a distance from the Lord of Taoism and wandering around to find an opportunity, suddenly froze. It wasn't his problem. It seemed to be the problem of this world. The spiritual power was suddenly cut off for a moment. The spiritual power between heaven and earth, and the bodies of demons and cultivators, were inextricably linked. Even when he used the heaven and earth mother plate to disturb the qi of this place, the connection was not broken. It just became chaotic. But right now, at that moment, it was as if the world became a vacuum. All the spiritual power disappeared, or was isolated from his body for a moment. This became some kind of terrible pressure. The spiritual power in his body tried to gush out and dissipate between heaven and earth. This moment was extremely short, so short that it didn't cause any substantial effect on his body. But one should know that he was fighting with the Lord of Taoism now. The speed of the two of them running in the sky was extremely fast. At the moment when his body was slightly stiff, the terrible restriction of the Lord of Taoism had already enveloped him. At this moment, the auspicious cloud that originally gathered beneath his feet, allowing his movements to become even more nimble, suddenly scattered, becoming the most ordinary mist. Some magic treasures that were hovering around him and providing him with enchantment protection fell one after another, like a flock of birds that died in an instant. Li Yunqin's body lost its support and suddenly began to fall. Seeing this scene, the demons almost exclaimed at the same time. This exclamation was not because he sympathized with or loved Li Yunqin. She was just surprised at why he had suddenly stopped in his tracks, ruining the good situation and seeking his own death. Bai Yunqin grabbed the evil lord's hand and shouted, "Lord!" The evil lord was also puzzled, but at this moment, it was too late to say anything. The Lord of Taoism let out a series of terrible laughter and flew towards Li Yunqin. The distance between the two of them was not too far. Now it was only a moment before he reached Li Yunxin, in the sky above the fire. The Lord of Taoism stretched out his bony claws and went straight for Li Yunxin's heart. Li Yunxin was below him, looking up at him, still holding the rusty sword in his hand. It seemed that because he had lost the supernatural power of waving the air, his limbs were not agile, and he couldn't fight back for a moment. Bai Yunxin screamed in horror. The ninth young master was also shocked. Shopkeeper Wang, who was watching from the shadows 10 miles away, was equally shocked. But he was not looking at them with his naked eyes. He was holding a long cylinder in his hand. Li Yunxin could tell that it was a pair of binoculars. The workmanship was rough, and it was the style of this world. Maybe it was made by the skilled craftsmen in Munanju. But no matter what, the effect was surprisingly good. Shopkeeper Wang saw everything and said in a low voice, "Ah." But Taoist Qingshui didn't turn around. It was as if he already knew the situation. He took another 2 steps and said, "You have seen it. Let's go. The person we are looking for will not die here. We have wasted so much time, and we have to start from the beginning." Then he heard Shopkeeper Wang's voice. "Master, you mean, if he is not dead?" Taoist Qingshui stopped. After a moment of silence, he turned around and frowned slightly. He saw Shopkeeper Wang's eyes wide open and pointing to a distance. "Then, Master, he is the person we are looking for." When Taoist Qingshui looked 10 miles away, he saw such a scene. The Taoist Qingshui was pouncing down like an eagle. The sharp nails of his ferocious claws were touching Li Yunxin's chest. If he exerted a little more force, the claws would sink into his flesh and pierce through his heart. Li Yunxin, on the other hand, was descending with a rusted sword in her hand. However, the moment when the demons Bai Yunxin, the ninth young master, and even Shopkeeper Wang couldn't help but gasp. It did not end as quickly as they thought. In fact, it lasted for 3 whole breaths. The Taoist Qingshui was falling down at the same speed as the Taoist Qingshui. The Taoist Qingshui was about to succeed, but there was still a little distance between them. After a while, only then did everyone realize that Li Yunxin was actually flying backwards as well. The treasures under his feet and the treasures around him all lost their powers and fell down. But he didn't. That seemed to be the case. After a full 3 breaths, the Tao Lord and Li Yunxin realized this. Li Yunxin herself was rather surprised, and both of them were stunned at the same time. The situation was very awkward. The next moment, the Taoist Qingshui screamed and jumped back. "How can this be?" Li Yunxin seemed to have just realized it and stabbed with his sword. "There are many things that you can't imagine. Watch my sword." You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.